Good morning once again. It's Friday this time. It's January 31st, 2020. Where does the time go? It is 33 degrees. 10% chance of rain. Don't worry too much about it. It's going to get up to 43 today. Right now, we are under broken clouds. Welcome. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. You're listening to Radio Westchester, the radio station at the train station. Welcome to the program. By the way, it's kind of what people are calling Super Bowl Friday because the Super Bowl is coming up. We'll be dedicating a good portion of the show talking about that today. We've got Steve Callis, Bud Poliquin, Jake coming on with his final pick today. We'll have some news because there's lots of news going on, but we'll talk a little football. You've earned it. Absolutely. It's fun time come Sunday. All right, let's take a look at the headlines this morning. Interstate 287 was tied up seriously last night because of a fatal wrong-way crash. We'll tell you about it. Fotis Doulos who was accused of killing his wife. He finally died. He tried to kill himself with using carbon dioxide, and now he left a note says he didn't kill his wife. I guess he thought he'd believe us if he was no longer around. We broke this story yesterday, rather we didn't, Black Westchester Magazine did on this air, but Deputy Clerk in Mount Vernon has been fired, but it's unclear if the council actually voted for it. And New York's last coal power plant is closing, and if you follow impeachment, Lamar Alexander, one of the votes the Democrats had hoped would bring them witnesses, he's likely now to vote for no witnesses, and we should see, or might see, a speedy end to the impeachment trial. It's time to move on now. Let's take a look at the weather. It's 33 right now. We're going to get up to 42 degrees. A few breaks of sun this morning, then mostly clouds, high around 40 degrees. Tonight, cloudy with a slight chance for a brief passing rain or snow shower. Lows around 34. Saturday, mostly cloudy with a slight chance. Again, a slight chance for a passing rain or snow shower. We'll get down. It'll be 43 during the day, getting down to 32 at night. And Sunday, Super Sunday and Groundhog Day, too, all at the same time. Actually, every year, doesn't the Super Bowl feel like Groundhog Day? It'll be partly sunny and breezy with highs around 44 degrees. And then at night, partly cloudy with lows around 36. And the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit UHGC.com. Let's get to our top stories now. One person was confirmed dead yesterday, that's last night, as state police investigated a wrong-way crash on 287. This out of Lohud News 12 this morning. The crash occurred around 8:30 p.m. in Harrison near the border with White Plains. The highway's eastbound lanes in White Plains were shut down while first responders extricated several people from their cars. And the crash happened shortly thereafter near exit 9. And the traffic was backed up for miles and miles as drivers were diverted over to 9A. That's all we know right now, but it has been cleared after that crash. We'll probably know more before the show is over and share that with you. This out of Hartford, but as you know, it impacted us a great deal. A Connecticut man charged with murdering his missing wife amid a contentious divorce case has died following an apparent suicide attempt. This came from his lawyer yesterday, published in Lohud this morning. Fotis Doulos, 52, had been hospitalized with carbon monoxide poisoning since Tuesday when he was found unresponsive inside a vehicle in his house in Farrington, Connecticut. A note was found at the home after he apparently did try to kill himself, and he said that he was innocent. In the course of searching the vehicle in which Doulos was found unresponsive, police officers recovered the note. So we'll see. His girlfriend is also up on charges. So we'll see how that actually unfolds. We're passing through 627. Mount Vernon's deputy city clerk was fired this week, but it is unclear whether the termination was agreed to by the majority of the city council. We heard this from A.J. Woodson in Black Westchester Magazine yesterday. The move is part of a shakeup of the clerk's office, with longtime clerk George Brown intends to retire at the end of February. Lauren Carter, a city employee since 2002, was notified on Tuesday by Councilman Marcus Griffith and received a letter from Council President Lisa Copeland confirming the termination. However, Councilwoman Delia Farquharson said she knew nothing about the firing and that 2 council members were also ignorant of the decision. And it appears that the city charter calls for that firing to have been preceded by a full vote of the city council. But what is past is prologue in Mount Vernon. Amazing stuff. It is 6:27. The Somerset Operating Company in Niagara County is where some folks have worked for 30 years. Well, they're looking at the closing of the last coal power plant in New York State. A variety of factors prompted the end of the coal era in New York: the regional availability of natural gas, the subsidization of renewable energy, a legislative pivot toward reducing greenhouse gases, and more. The workers at the last coal plant understand the circumstances, and they've done their best to prepare themselves for the bitter end of a lucrative era. And again, this is up in Niagara County, the company, the Somerset Operating Company. Although a little commentary, if I may, and again, whenever I throw an opinion, I'll always say that, unless I forget, but I'll try not to. We should keep an eye on our electric bills and power bills, because after all the brouhaha, they know we have short memories, and the Indian Point power plant is going to close. And we were told natural gas is plentiful, that's why it's closing, it's cheaper. And then what do you know? They put that moratorium on setting up new customers, number one, and number two, unless the bills align, the price of the gas seems to be going up. Sometimes it feels like we're just all pawns in their game, doesn't it? 6:29. This out of the county, it was, speaking of Indian Point, and this out of News 12 this morning, was a full roundtable discussion Thursday night with officials at all levels discussing top concerns. And this was a meeting with Westchester County Executive George Latimer calling for public comment and for the period to be extended from 30 days to 60 days. He wants Holtec, the company poised to buy and tear down the nuclear power plant, to host a meeting with officials of every municipality. Holtec estimates the job could take 12 to 15 years and cost approximately $2.3 billion. That's more than the decommissioning fund affords. Some have criticized Holtec for not explaining how it will overcome the funding issue. One councilman, Richard Becker, says getting the job done, not running into financial difficulties, are among the concerns. You think, Councilman? It is 6:30. This story out of New Rochelle. Now, please listen carefully, because there's a nuance in the story, so don't go running off. We need to leave town. The coronavirus is here. Well, a form of it is, and this out of News 12 today. A New Rochelle student has tested positive for the common strain of the coronavirus. A letter sent to parents said the Albert Leonard Middle School, a student has the strain NL63, which most people will get in their lives. It is not the strain that has been rapidly spreading around the world. Superintendent Laura Fayhu said in a statement, quote, "We ask parents of any children who are feeling severe cold or flu-like symptoms to please keep your children home until they feel better." While it's not a deadly virus, it's pretty contagious, so that's why the concern. The company that operated the helicopter that crashed on Sunday, in the Calabasas region in California, killing Kobe Bryant, his daughter Gianna, and 7 others, has suspended operations. Island Express Helicopters made the announcement in a statement yesterday and provided it to ABC News, from whom we got this story. We also credit AOL and others. The company acknowledged on Monday that it owned the Sikorsky S-76 helicopter that crashed and that it was cooperating with the National Transportation Safety Board investigation. Now, reading a little deeper into the story, there's some question now about whether or not they were even qualified to ask for what are called special visual flight rules, which is to say that the controllers will follow and stick closely with the aircraft. It appears at least that They may only have been approved to fly their helicopters with straight up visual flight rules. Now, they also said in a statement yesterday that their employees were very, very upset that might have been one of the reasons that they were not operating, but we'll probably hear more about that. It is 6:32. There are so many people, folks, running for these open seats, the Nita Lowey seat in particular, that we're going to have to get a scorecard with numbers on them. Well, here's another one. At least 9 so far here. Democrat Adam Scheffler's campaign said he has $1 million on hand for his bid to replace longtime Representative Nita Lowey. Again, she's retiring. That's the most that has been announced by any of the candidates running in a crowded party primary for a reliably blue congressional seat. Scheffler, 38, of Chappaqua, have more than $700,000 cash on hand at the end of 2019. We will be getting this gentleman on. We will start to have more and more of these congressional candidates and people running in the upcoming primary in June as quickly as we can. Ms. Farkas, the next one to appear on our air. I do believe we have her scheduled for the 11th or the 13th. We'll, of course, follow up with that. It is 6:33. School districts with growing enrollments are working hard to convince residents to fill out the 2020 census, wanting all families and children to be counted because of government funding. Again, it is at stake. This in LoHUD today. While districts with large immigrant populations face a challenge, and that is of persuading undocumented residents that it's important and safe for them to take the census, a once-a-decade attempt to count every person living in the United States. New York has about a 76 response rate in the 2010 census, and the state has been receiving about $73 billion annually in federal education aid. Now, one of the reasons is, of course, with all of the drama and contention surrounding immigration, many immigrants are still fearful to identify themselves for fear of legal troubles leading even up to being deported. Some national stories before we move on and come back with regional news. Republican Senator Lamar Alexander of Tennessee will oppose calling more witnesses in President Donald Trump's impeachment trial, all but dashing Democratic efforts to hear more testimony and boosting odds that the Senate will vote immediately to acquit without new testimony, if not later today, perhaps early next week. Republican Senator Susan Collins of Maine said late Thursday she would vote to allow witnesses in the impeachment trial, building momentum, but Alexander then said in a statement, quote, "No need for more evidence," unquote, giving the Trump team the likelihood of that Senate vote. Now, going back to the coronavirus just a little bit, the U.S. advised against all travel to China on Friday after the World Health Organization declared the outbreak of a new virus that has spread to more than a dozen countries. Again, it's an emergency, but one of the things we did, by the way, China has 9,690 plus cases with a death toll of 2,013. And again, while it's being declared a world emergency, what we're seeing here in the United States is a slowing of the spread of the disease, and that news coming as early as today. We have a lot more news and, of course, local news, or rather, I should say regional news coming up, but it is time to take a little break and take a look at the weather. Good morning once again. Let us reset. The bottom of the hour the top of the hour, you pardon me, was brought to you by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit UHGC.com. Aging Issues Management, their partners, Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, Plug-in Virtual Reality, and Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Patrons, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located on Boston Post Road in Larchmont. They're open 7 days. We won't have a perfect day, but good enough. 33 degrees right now. It's going up to 43 today. Right now, broken clouds. And we may have a few breaks of sun this morning, then mostly cloudy the rest of the way. Again, the high in the 40s area. Tonight, cloudy skies with a slight chance of a brief rain or snow shower, lows around 34. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy with the slight chance for a passing rain or snow shower, then throughout the day. Mild with highs around 43 in the evening. Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, and Groundhog Day. You know, every year, every January, every Christmas, sometimes life feels like Groundhog Day. In fact, I've always wondered if it was a metaphor for that. At any rate, mostly cloudy with a slight chance of, partly sunny, I should say, and breezy with highs around 44. That's Sunday night. We get cloudy with lows around 36. Rather, we get clouds. I'll get it right. It takes a little time. You know how it is. Good morning again, one and all. It is Friday, January 31st, 2020. Didn't it seem like we were just celebrating Christmas or even the 4th of July? It moves so quickly. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester, the radio station at the train station. Now, you may be listening on any of our visual outlets, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Instagram. We're also on iTunes, soon to be on Spotify. A lot of people listen on RadioWestchester.com, which of course makes sense. You can also go to Mornings with Bob Marrone. Now, what a lot of people are doing now is they're going to the .com app, MyTuner Radio. Again, MyTunerRadio.com. They're clicking on Bob Marrone, rather, I should say, please excuse me, Mornings with Marrone, or RadioWestchester.com, and they are listening that way. To one and all, thank you very much for listening. Some of the other stories we're looking at, there was another case today, and I've got the paper right here to prove it. Another case today. Now, we realize this is anecdotal, all right, but an individual was busted in a DWI, and he boasts to cops, "I'll be out tomorrow," and he was. And more pressure, much more and more pressure being put on legislators to do something to modify the new bail law. Now, the people that want to modify the bail law, and that includes this person, we're not saying put everybody in jail who robs a grocery store or who has been suspected or has evidence against them that, of a misdemeanor or a harmless misdemeanor. But clearly there are some people that should be held without bail. And this is going to come back, at least in my estimation, and it's going to smack the Democrats for overreaching. Again, folks, it does make sense because poor people have been screwed in the past and kept in jail too long, and they're supposed to be presumed innocent. They don't have enough money for bail. We get it. I get it. But there has to be reason worked into the process. I think people in their jobs, in courts, obviously, and in life think that they can reduce everything to a formula. Let the computer do. What does the computer say? One of the reasons we have executives, one of the reasons we have judges, one of the reasons we have a president, even some of the debates going on right now in Washington, and they're important debates. Whether you believe in this impeachment in terms of he ought to be convicted or not, one of the things we need to take more seriously is move a little bit away from our policy, from our partisan feelings, and realize how much we may or may not be. How much power are we giving the president to use reason, to have discretion? The governors need it, corporate executives need it, corner office supervisors need it. Similarly, judges need it. We need to apply reason to life's issues and life's problems, and it doesn't seem to be the case. Moving on now from that, Carranza's in the story again. He actually is offering a little bit of apology for the fact that he didn't listen to that woman, and is, again, based on some of his positions when there's violence in schools. Now, one of the things the Department of Education is doing, and they're trying to mend fences with elected officials as well by meeting with them, and sort of apropos of some of the discussions that have taken place here in New Rochelle, where we may have someone from the city council sitting in on school board type meetings. So, all right, before we get on and into the Super Bowl, we have some other local stories that are kind of interesting, or regional stories, and the phones will be open in about, I'm trying to say, about 5 minutes, so just give us a little more time. We have so many things going on. This one will annoy you, and it's really Not so much a regional story. No, let me do the regional story first. What you say it, Bob, do it. So here I am. Please excuse me. Poor Billy Joel, and I only say that because none of us like to have our houses broken into. You may know that he's a motorcycle nut. He's been all his life. I mean, since he was young, and naturally now that he has means, a part of his big estate out in Oyster Bay, it includes a garage filled with vintage and modern motorcycles. Kind of like when you watch some of those programs with the former Tonight Show host. Well, his thing is cars, of course, Jay Leno, but this man's, Billy Joel's, fun is motorcycles. Well, someone breaks into his garage last weekend. I guess he was performing in the garden. Someone breaks into his garage and thrashes and not just fully destroys, but mangles several of his motorcycles, but didn't steal anything, didn't steal any money, didn't steal any tools, just messed with the man's motorcycles. That's weird. Why in God's name would you do that? Now, another story that broke yesterday, and we've had debates on this program among our sports people, and if for those of you who listen to sports radio, this has come up, and of course, even in the gossip page, and that has to do with Aaron Hernandez and the new Netflix special that came out about the evolution of his character and then resulting in his jail suicide. Well, this piece yesterday in the Daily News and in the Post had it as well. Aaron Hernandez has tearfully told his mother that he was gay before his prison cell suicide, and his family still fears he became a killer. Now, this is interesting, and this is one of the speculations, that he became a killer to hide his secret sex life. And this came out Wednesday. The former New England Patriots tight end and his mother, Terry Hernandez, were both weeping during a prison visit when he confided his sexuality. This according to his brother, Jonathan Hernandez, and he noted it in a TV interview. So there you go with that. Now, speaking of football stars who are disgraced, O.J. Simpson's in the news again for secretly selling autographed memorabilia. And this was in the page 6 Emily Smith yesterday, but he's still not signing any gloves. Sources say Simpson is caught in something of a commercial catch-22. Charging money to sign collectibles is one of the few ways he's able to make cash, but he doesn't want his creditors. Now that includes Nicole Brown's family, knowing how much memorabilia he's scribbling on or what he's raking in. Now remember, he lost, which always amazes me, that a civil suit ought not to be connected with a legal suit. I know there's a legal distinction or a criminal suit, but on one hand, he didn't do it, but on the other hand, another jury says, oh yeah, he did it, give millions to the, only in our justice system, give millions to the the family of Nicole Brown. But here's the catch there. He hasn't been paying them. He moved to Florida, which has different laws, and he keeps moving or living in states where he doesn't have to worry about paying that debt. But if they track this or these sales, he will have to pay it. And he ought to pay it. And the government ought to compel him to pay it somehow. Otherwise, put him back in jail, please. Don't you wish some of these people would just go away? There's an interesting piece, and this involved a drug smuggling in Mexico yesterday. Not that it happened yesterday, but there was a mile-long, 4,000, almost a mile-long, 309-foot tunnel, smuggling tunnel that the feds announced they had found as an extension or an extensive rail cart route and an elevator that came right around Tijuana, from Tijuana into San Diego. Now, they had a picture of it in the paper. I don't know if you can see this very well. Let me hold it up. Okay, it is. And the interesting thing about it is it's very well done. And it actually has a rail car, a small car, not a big train, but that you can push the drugs in and then take it and bring it up in an elevator in San Diego, and you're done. And apropos of that story, 2 days ago, it turned out that 3 of what we would refer to as senior executives in the big cartel that led to that famous arrest and conviction last year, They snuck out of jail now in Mexico, too. And what all this is about is money. People had to be paid off. Certainly, we know they're paying people off in Mexico where people die by the thousands. But I find it hard to believe that palms haven't been greased on this side of the border as well. That you can't tell you have a mile-long tunnel under your territory. It's that whole cartel. What we ought to do is make drugs legal like they did with the prohibition and change the way things are. It is 6:47. 3 more minutes, we'll open up those telephones. Some of the other stories we're covering and talking about. In fact, some of these stories are worthy of a call, so please do give us a buzz. 914-222-3141. Corona beer. They're seeing a surge in Google searches. Now, they're not upset, although a lot of people think that the coronavirus is caused by the beer. You got to love it. But they're not. It's certainly not going to hurt them in the long run. It's going to help their brand, at least I think so. Patrick Mahomes, of course, as we start talking about the Super Bowl, he is up for a contract extension. But I don't know what the Chiefs are thinking. They say, well, it may happen before the end of his current contract. I'm sure he's going to get extremely rich, and I'm sure he's the best, and I'm sure they don't want to screw it up. But even any hint that it may take a while, I would not treat Patrick Mahomes this way if I were you owners. I wouldn't do that. We've seen worse. We've seen people say, I'm not playing for this team or that team, although not certainly on that scale. You got this brat, Tyler, for those of you who are hockey fans over in New Jersey, Taylor Hall, who, I want to play here. And you know what? He's a superstar, and he just waited it out and had to be traded. Be careful, Kansas City Chiefs. Companies are betting big on Super Bowl ads once again, and I know many of you will watch the Super Bowl just to see that. Now, brands are going head-to-head in many cases to have the most memorable ads at costs up to $5.6 million per half a minute. And got some more stuff, a lot of stuff. Coming up your way. 914-222-3141. 914-222-3141. Out in Kansas, they're considering requiring In God We Trust in classrooms. Conservative Republicans are pushing for a law in Kansas to require the posting of the national motto, In God We Trust, in public buildings. Now, that is going to be a great battle between the Organization for the Separation of Church and State and the government, that local government. Now, it's interesting, full disclosure, it's one of the few organizations where I subscribe to their newsletter and believe in what they do, but they're not, in my view, always right. In God We Trust is more about honoring goodness and decency, at least in my view. But it is a national slogan. I'm okay with it. Not that what I think matters, but I'm okay with it. However, the less, in general, we have God in the country as, I'm not saying that people shouldn't believe, but in the national and legal offices and government influence, the better. For $500, Hank Stram made the Chiefs Super Bowl IV victory iconic. Super Bowl, and this was Super Bowl IV. It was a game immortalized by the NFL Films decision to mic up a coach for the first time. The reason we say that is the Chiefs used to be a powerhouse in the NFL back in the 60s and early 70s, and Hank Stram was one of their great coaches when they had that incredible rivalry, if any of you remember it. They were constantly playing, it seemed, the Oakland Raiders, and the Chiefs were the good guys. Although I can tell you, in the mobbed-up neighborhood where I grew up, you couldn't vote on the Chiefs for several years. Wonder why. All righty. Fred Silverman, illustrious TV programmer behind Charlie's Angels and All in the Family, has died at the age of 82. We remember all those shows. The longtime television programmer, he pushed some of TV's most iconic shows on to the air. He was 82 years old. Now, a good question is coming out about the coronavirus, and the question is, do those masks help? And the common thought is, those are the face masks, is that they do. If you go into any hospital where they're segregating patients or quarantining them. They wear them. If any of you have a relative or loved one or friend who's suffering from one of the leukemia diseases or because of a transplant or whatever has had their immune system compromised through chemotherapy, you would have to wear the mask when you see them. But that has come up now because a lot of people who are getting even the non-aggressive form of the virus, because it is so easy to get, people you'll see will come in, will come in with a mask and so forth. Yes, they do help. Now, some pilots, American operates, by the way, 56 flights a month between Dallas, Fort Worth, and China. Pilots are seeking to halt them until coronavirus is contained. Now, this came out yesterday in CBS News, and the interesting news about that is someone called into the show yesterday and said, why are we still allowing planes to land from China? Now, when the planes land, they are checking those patients or those people. It shouldn't be called patients, should they? They are checking them out, and they are making sure that they, at least in certain ports, that people don't come in with the virus. But that is, I guess, a fair question. Look at this. Now, we knew this. This came out of a national outlet yesterday, but here in Westchester, this happens all the time. And it has a lot to do with the loss of ethics in this country, and it has a lot to do with the way the government hires. But nonetheless, an overwhelmed postman has actually stashed thousands of letters and magazines in a stolen locker. And at least it's not here in Westchester, it's in Virginia Beach. The postman in this piece says didn't ring twice, although he planned to. A mail carrier pleaded guilty to stashing 200 pieces of first and second class mail and thousands of advertising circulars. That seems to be most of the snail mail these days anyway, because he didn't have time to deliver the mail. Now, I probably should have moved this story up. But Harley Davidson is struggling to attract new customers. You know, we saw this wave of, in the last decade, of interest in motorcycles from the baby boomers. But now it appears that some of the millennials are not that into, motorcycles. And so they're doing their best, Harley Davidson, with marketing to attract new fans, but they say they're having some difficulty because some of their old customers and diehard fans don't like some of the changes that they make. And Americans, they say, by a recent poll, despise double dippers, and people in these states do it the most. And double dipping, we know, takes place here in New York. This is when someone gets two pensions. I don't know why you would, so long as the person earned it. If a police officer does his or her 25 years, and they're 45 or 50 years old, and they want to get a second job and build a second pension, let them. That's hard work. Those are some of the things that conservative folks, and I share this, with their admiration for hard work, scratch their heads about. Why wouldn't you let someone double dip, even if it involves two pensions? If they've earned it, it's theirs. That's my take. A couple of other items here. Mattel releases new Barbie dolls with no hair to better reflect the world. It might be Barbie's world, but the hopes to better reflect body positive representations today. So, well, why not? A lot of people, now a lot of men who go bald shave the whole head. They feel better about it. And why should we take away anyone feeling better about themselves? All right, let's see where we are. Facial recognition scanners at U.S. airports are under more scrutiny, and I don't know why they would be. We do have to protect our borders. These are different times. Passenger rights advocates worry about privacy concerns. Yeah, we understand, but good grief. Get over. A couple of more stories of that nature as we pass. We come up on 7 o'clock. We'll do a reset. And again, we'll take some calls. A disturbing number of people. No, where is it? I lost my place. I've done it a million times. Speaking of the Super Bowl, as we start talking more and more about it, the decline of football is real, says Forbes magazine, and it's accelerating. And what they're talking about is people who want to play and people who are concerned about it because of the plethora, or at least what is believed to be the widespread suffering of CTE, brain injuries, etc. Now, another item that came out regarding the Super Bowl is that Miami, that site, leads the NFL in one category, player arrests. Besides the Super Bowl, Metro Miami has been the site of at least 60 NFL player arrests and citations since 2000, far more than any other city. But I think one of the reasons is, you go over to certain parts of Miami, it's a party city. So it may well be in every sport or every vocation where people travel to Miami. I'd like to see the rest of those numbers. Now get this. This one has me scratching my head. And Dr. Sternberg's not with us today on Super Friday. But living near major roads, they're now saying, is linked to the risk of dementia and Parkinson's. Now, here we are right next to 95. I can feel my brain shrinking as it is. People who live within 50 meters of a major road are 19% more likely to develop Alzheimer's, 7% more likely to develop Parkinson's, and 25% more likely to get multiple sclerosis. Now, this was a piece here in the New York Post that they received the information from various science outlets, and they're not sure why noise, but more likely the fumes from the cars. No one is really sure. It's so hard. That's not unlike some of the things we've read where in certain areas, it used to be down in, I forget what town it is in New Jersey, certain spots out on Long Island by the Brookhaven Lab. One cannot really be sure. It is 6:58, coming up on 6:59. We have one more item before we move on. Credit card companies, and you may notice you get the emails, and it's so hard to separate all the spam from real emails, but credit card companies are quietly raising limits on subprime and near-prime borrowers. It might sound like a risky strategy at a time when millions of Americans are drowning in debt. This piece in Bloomberg Business Week. They keep raising the limit on people's credit cards even if they don't ask, but that's exactly what big banks have been doing lately to amp up their profits. For years after the financial crisis, Capital One Financial Corp resisted that step for customers who looked vulnerable to getting in over their heads. This in internal conversations, Chief Executive Officer Richard Fairbank characterized the restraint that showed as a radical theology in part because it went beyond post-crisis requirements. At any rate, they said the increases are good customer service and cardholders can reverse them at any time. That is pretty dangerous, but then again, given the cost of things, I think we see why this could be a problem. And folks, believe me when I tell you, they have the quants, they have the analysts, they have very bright people who compare how many of these accounts go sour and are uncollectible versus how many people pay higher or somewhat higher interest rates. And when they net it all out, the more credit they give, the more money they make. And that's even. And that's not to knock them. It's not a bad business model. We should be careful when we do that. But the point being that the more credit they give, the more money they make. It is 7 o'clock, time to reset and look at the program that we share with you today. Good morning, one and all. It is Friday, January 31st, 2020. It's 33 out there, 10% chance of rain. We maybe a spritzer later on. We have broken clouds right now. We're going to get up to 43. Welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester, your radio station at the train station. Coming up at 7:20, we're going to be talking with Vince Russo this morning. 7:35, Janelle Albritton from the Westchester County Post.com. And around 7:30, we'll talk a little bit with her about the Super Bowl. Does she watch it? She's from California, What's it like out there during Super Sunday? And kind of early in the day, I guess, for them. But we'll find out. Steve Callis is with us at 7:50. He is our sports guy from right around our home. He's here. Then we'll have Bud Poliquin on. He is our award-winning journalist who's covered 16 or 17 Super Bowls himself. Bud will be with us, and this is all taking place between roughly 7:40 and 8:35. Jake, of course, will make his final football pick of the year with advice from Steve and Jake. So they will be talking football, and this is for you. Something that in other outlets I didn't do. We stayed with political news, but it's nice to do a little sports and a little football when it is, after all, the talk of the country, and almost everyone listening to this will be watching the game on Sunday. And then we'll wrap up the show with Hezi Aris. And I do have a call coming in, which we'll get to in just a moment. I just want to go through some of the Super Bowl stuff. Tom, you can call us if you like, if you're listening, or we certainly will get out to you. There he is. We see him. All right. I know he's going to pick up. All right. You stay right there, Thomas. We'll be with you in a moment. So that's the show for today. Welcome to the program. We've shared some of the headlines with you, and we'll be back to some of the news later, but we promised some open phones, and open phones we will go to. It is 7:03. Quick look at the weather before we go to Thomas. The weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. It's 33 going to 43 today. That'll be the high. It'll average out about 40. We will have maybe a few breaks of sun this morning, with them mostly cloudy, highs around 40. Tonight, cloudy skies with a slight chance for a brief passing rain or a snow shower, getting down to 34. Tomorrow, no storms, slight, and I underscore slight chance for a passing rain shower, getting to 43. Sunday, Super Sunday, Groundhog Day. Wow, partly sunny and breezy with a high around 44. Tom from Pelham's on the line. I'm going to do poetry, and talking with him will be fine. Good morning, Thomas.
Hey, good morning, Bob. How are you?
Very well. Thank you for calling in. What's on your mind?
Oh, a lot of things. Yesterday, I didn't see very much of the late afternoon into the end of the day, or end of the evening, because I was at a play in Manhattan with Anna. Bob, I went to go see To Kill a Mockingbird.
How was it? Boy, that's supposed to be a classic.
It was outstanding.
Yeah.
You know, I must admit, it's amazing I can string a word or two together, because I'm not very much of a reader.
Yes.
But so I've never read the book To Kill a Mockingbird, and on the way home, Anna informed me that there's actually a movie with Gregory Peck.
Oh God!
To Kill a Mockingbird.
A classic.
How about that? I'm not a movie buff, nor am I very much of a reader.
Well, let me just cover this. Now, you did hear about Lindbergh. He made it to Paris, you know. Just saying.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. The medium of communication or knowledge that I am most interested in is the radio.
Yes.
I love the radio.
I've loved it my whole life.
I love the radio. Yeah, Bobby. I mean, you can hold it in your hand. You can walk around with it. You can close your eyes and you can listen. It's just to me, it's the best. By the way, are you off site today? Are you at Dominic's?
No. We did. What had happened was some issues came up. One of them health-wise, and the other one was we had some logistical issues, and we were even going to put Jake over there. But at the end of the day, and this is, between Dominic's business, I have a very bad allergy to cigar smoke. So we were trying to figure out, even though I like anyone else, in the old days used to like a puff of it, but it'd be pretty serious. If I spent a couple of hours there, I would become really ill. So because it's the room in the back. So we had to scrap it, but we're back in our usual fishbowl here. Thank you for asking. Let me ask you, since you brought up radio, we don't talk a lot about that. I mean, Anthony and I have, and some others over the years, before you found us. I loved radio since I was a little kid. I grew up in a house full of women, and remember back in the day when there was only one TV. Guess who ruled the TV with 5 women in the house and me? So I would go. I mean, I watched the oddball game when they weren't, but I had my radio for for the Dodgers, and although they left in '58 when I was a little boy, of course. But baseball, and I wasn't a big hockey fan as a little kid. But I used to listen to all the talk shows, Long John Nebel, et cetera, et cetera. I loved radio forever. and something I always promised. Everybody said, it's funny, I would tell people, I'm going to do it. I'm going to retire from my primary job when my daughter's on her own 2 feet. I'm going to do it. And so it's been a dream come true, really.
Yeah. Well, see, that's my thing. I love radio. So anyway, I'm at the play, and when you start to get into shows, like this one or any other play, or lately I've become a fan of Sherlock Holmes.
Oh my!
So I go to these little productions here in Westchester. There's a group, or what do you call it? I guess we'll call it a group.
There's a troupe. There's
a troupe, right?
I forget what it is. I had it in my brain and then it fled. But yeah, it'll come to me. Go ahead, sir.
So there's a slightly older friend of ours who is really into Sherlock Holmes from a long time ago, and he got us interested in going with him. So maybe twice a year we catch a production of a Sherlock Holmes short story. So when you haven't paid much attention to something that a lot of people are into, and then you become interested in it, it's like brand new. It's like waiting for your favorite music. If you're into like years ago and still to the day, Jethro Tull, Ian Anderson,
sure,
my number one favorite musician of all time. I waited for months for a new album back in the day. A new album to come out.
That's so interesting. Go ahead. I want to make a comment about it.
And now there's all these short stories for Sherlock Holmes that, I pick it up. It's like it's like brand new to me, and I'm reading something for the first time. So on the way down to the play, of course, Anna, where I don't read, Anna picks up. She's an avid reader. She reads dozens and dozens and dozens of books a year.
Sounds like me.
So on the way to the show, she starts to talk about the storyline, and I said, please don't tell me anything. I want to hear it and watch it for the first time.
Hey, it would be like the honeymoon. It would be like the Honeymooner episode where Ralph's mother-in-law screws up Norton and says the end of the play. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And he smashes his open palm hand onto the table and stands up and points to the door. Out.
I love that episode. 3 minutes, Alice. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I took you off your 3 minutes.
But no, there were a lot of things going on in this To Kill a Mockingbird. The main plot, of course, is racism, and then it just stems everything off of that. And I really enjoyed it. But you know
what you're learning?
At the end, I had a tear in my eye. It was
what you're learning at middle
emotional.
age? Doesn't it make you say, gee, when you go into college or good high school, and they throw some subjects out, I got to pass this thing, I got to read this book. But now when you're older and you get a chance to see these plays or read these books because you're genuinely interested, and then you see the wisdom in them. It's like there's that great line in, because I did it a little differently. When I kind of knew I was going to be going to the radio, I would say as early as, I knew it always, but in my early 40s, I started reading the classics. Because and various other things about humor and science, because I love to learn. But the thing is, after you're older and you have a little life behind you, these things come alive. You say, "Oh, I've been in that situation," or "That happened to me." Now, for example, we all know the line, "It is a far, far better thing that I do," but it really is such a which is at the end of A Tale of Two Cities. Do you know what that really means, except other than to hear it as a statement? It's really interesting. It's a very selfless thing. There's a guy who was a cad all his life, essentially, to jump to it. He was a simple-minded, very selfish. And like what we see today, vanity, and only did things because it benefited him. And at the very end of his life, he is about to be executed for it. So that quote is really in his mind. He never utters it. He's about to be executed for a crime he didn't commit. But someone that he wronged, who is the actual guilty person, but who deserves a break, he takes the fall. This selfish man. And at the very end, he says to himself, "It is a far, far better thing that I do than I've ever done." Now it has some meaning. In other words, no one's ever going to know except the reader that he did that. Anyway, the reason I say that is when you get to a certain age, and it's not about age, folks, it's about when you finally have enough life experience or whatever to appreciate these. These classics are not classics for nothing.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, Bob, when we arrived, there were, you know, you're finding your way over to your seat. And notice there were a group of women that knew each other, but I guess because when they bought their seats, they couldn't get them all in a row. So they were scattered around us.
Yes.
And I have to mention it because it was part of the storyline of the play, but they were probably my age, I'd say early 60s, all the way up to late 70s. And they were all women and they were all black. And they're sitting around us and the show begins. And then the N-word comes out repeatedly because of the story, you know, and what was happening back in the, I guess it was all around the 1930s.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Was the timeline.
Yeah.
And, you know, how the blacks were mistreated. And every now and then you'd hear one of the women go,
Of course, yeah.
So, you know, I'm watching something. Of course, racism is all around us and it's nothing new to me, but you know, I'm hearing this play being produced or watching this play being produced in front of me, and I have, you know, women who lived through it sitting all around me, not saying anything other than And Bob, it was just, I'm telling you, at the end of the play, there were tears in my eyes. Anyway,
that's great.
I get back in the car, and I turn on the radio because, of course, the politics is what also drives me. And I'm listening to what's going on, and there's tears in my eyes again. It's like, remember,
good for you.
The Jim Valvano, you know, if you have a day where you think and you are moved to emotion, and you know his famous speech, Jimmy V's famous SB speech. You know, I had one of those days yesterday.
Yeah. You know what? It's kind of a credit to you that you can talk about it even on the air. Do you know who? In fact, I was arguing with the third party yesterday. You and Anthony, you hate each other? I said, absolutely not. I said we just sometimes lose it with each other. Anthony, for example, and I'm not outing him. He's done it. Anthony, for such a tough dude, writes some poetry and has wept on the air.
I know. I've heard him.
There's something. Being moved, something that attaches you that can move you. And I go through those moments myself. I know we're all having this weepy session here. People are going to call up, you little wuss bunnies. But no, but that's a big part of life to be moved. That's art ought to do that. It's one of the jobs.
So here's another thing. This is another thing that things happen in a day and you don't know them. I'm thinking about it now in retrospect, but we walk out of the theater and we're starting to walk towards a place to get a soft drink and then to our car, and there's a panhandler, and he's approaching one person after the other, and they're turning their head, looking the other way, walking past, and he's standing literally in front of my wife and I. We would have walked over him if we didn't stop. And he said, "Hey, can you help me out with a couple bucks?" And I said to him, "I'd love to help you out." I said, "You know, what are you going to use the money for? Are you hungry?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm hungry. And I said, "Okay." I said, "I tell you what." I said, "There's a lot of places to eat here in New York City. You come with me. I'm going to buy you some food."
Good for you.
And he didn't want the food. But Bob, he didn't want the food.
No, he wanted the food.
Clear. And he goes, "Oh, I got a bad stomach and I can't really eat a whole lot." I said, "Well, you have to eat. What do you eat?" And he goes, "I eat tofu." I said, "Well, come on, let's go get some tofu. I'm going to buy you tofu." And then he said to me, "Can you just throw me a couple dollars?" And I said, "Look, I gave you a chance. I was happy to help you and buy you some food or drink." I said, "But, you know," I said, "you should really talk to someone else now." He kept harassing me. And go ahead, Bob.
No. I just wanted to say that I don't know if you heard the 9 o'clock segment yesterday with this young woman who goes and approaches homeless people.
I did.
And it's just, it's a tough nut to crack. and how many go back on the streets. But you're right. This person was most of them are either drug addled or
Yeah.
alcoholics or mentally ill. I think where my friends on the left have messed up with great intentions. I understand that. They have civil rights, give them medication, put them on the streets, take them out of hospitals. Well, yeah, they're back on the street, all right. We need to take a harder look at mental illness, harder look at dealing
Yeah,
with
and
it.
Anna said to me, "Why don't you give him some money?" And I said, "Because I don't want to give a person money to buy drugs. I'm just not doing that.
No, I understand.
You know, I'll buy you food, I'll buy you clothing,
Hey.
I'll do whatever I can to help you, but I'm not going to give you drugs."
No, I totally understand. We got another caller coming in, Thomas. Great call. I'm going to
Okay,
take that
Bob.
call. Okay, thank you very much. Let me get which one is this? Is that you? Which is 77? Ah, here we go. We're calling back. Do you think they know it's me? See, if you're seeing a 718 number, that's us. It's a special deal we have. Good morning. You're on Radio Westchester.
Hey, Bobby, it's Anthony. How are
Hey,
you?
Anthony, how are you? What's up?
Good. I just happened to hear a little bit of your conversation with Tom, and where you referenced me.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, if you can't, if people today can't find something to be moved about,
Mm-hmm.
then life's not worth living.
You're so right. Like you and I act like little babies when we talk about our grandkids. It's pathetic, but I love it.
Oh, forget about it. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be putting my feet on the ground every morning.
I met a woman yesterday. I used to work with many years at Marrone, and she was in town looking for work and got in touch with me for, usual connections. And she's about to be a grandmother for the first time, and I gave her a little speech. it's just,
when I'm down, I have to eat on the run, fast
Mm-hmm.
food. It is what it is.
Uh-huh.
Like today. But I'll walk into McDonald's if they have like a twofer or something.
Uh-huh.
I always buy it. I'm not going to eat both. What I do is, on my way out, all you have to do is look around, and you'll find someone either sleeping at a table or, sitting at a table, and I just walk by and offer it to them.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's
And sometimes if they're sleeping, I just leave it on the table next to them.
Yep. There's a woman here who I've talked to Choice about, but she likes her life. She's not ready to do anything. She's probably in her 80s, got a shopping cart. And every once in a while, I get one of the hot heroes in the train station. I give it to her. But I don't know. There's something about you're so right. Some of the sweet things in life will move you. And this is going to make me just totally. People are going to turn off their radios. But when
there's a certain percentage. And I'm not going to pick a number and put it on because I really have no clue. But that actually want to be homeless, prefer to be homeless.
Abso-freaking-lutely. And they know that. Yes, absolutely. And they like the freedom of that life. I read a book called The Mole People. And it's about the people that live in the tunnels in New York and have virtual societies. But I was talking about being moved with grandkids and other things, and it's not worth living. There's a spot, because I taught my grandson how to skate in rollers first, and inlines. There's a spot in New Jersey where I taught him how to skate. And now here he is on the precipice of going to college, on a partial hockey scholarship. And I can't pass that spot without getting like weepy. What happened? He was 8 years old and I taught him how to skate. You know what people are going to do, by the way, Anthony? They're listening now, right? And saying, weren't these two guys yelling at each other yesterday? And what I try and tell them is, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe Washington should be listening in and take an example.
Yeah, and it's okay. I mean, both of us have lost it, but anyway, about the homeless. Going back to that, I really care about that. But the part I care most about is having been very fortunate enough, and you don't get away totally unscathed. But when I wrote my book about depression, there's a chapter in it called "Something is Broken." And the reason I wrote that chapter is it's not just I'm depressed and sad, and it's that when your brain chemistry gets to the point where you can't literally control your own thoughts, and to some extent, you can always control your behavior, but you're compelled not to. It is an incredibly horrible thing, and I think well, just bear with me. I think that some folks just don't understand it. There are some homeless people that we're never going to be able to get right and are going to require a lifetime of help. And I don't know what the answer
When
is.
you write your second book,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll no, this is no joke. This is no joke.
Yes.
I'll collaborate with you on a chapter on people who have to live with pain daily.
Oh, I think of you all the time when we talk about opioids. You know, we didn't want to ask you on the air, and we'll ask you off air. I know you had another test the other day. Your spine and you do not get along, clearly. That's all I can say.
That's one of the maladies that I'm afflicted with. But it is what it is. And like I say, if it wasn't for grandchildren, probably wouldn't be putting my feet on the ground every morning.
I do understand. I usually pick my grandson up on a Friday night because he comes to my hockey games. And no matter what's been going on during the week, even now that he's 17 and he thinks he's cool, he gets in the car. Or like I took my granddaughter to that Winter Wonderland. It just doesn't get any better, Anthony. Anthony, thank you very much. Write us another poem.
As young as my grandkids are, I've taught them the valuable lesson that payback is a you-know-what.
Oh, yeah, it is. Well, I told you my grandson's payback for me. He says, you've been good to me, Pop, as I've been growing up. So when you're old, I'm going to push you around. And then he ends it with in a baby bouncer. So that's the kind of kid he is. All right, take care. Be well, my friend.
He got you with the Trump website. That's what.
Oh, no, Anthony, no. I am still getting emails. I got one yesterday from the president that said, where are you? Where's your money? You said you were going to help us. All right. Speaking of people who I have good feelings for, this man I know since I'm 5 years old, which tells you a lot about me, particularly that I have bad judgment. Please welcome Vince Russo. Good morning, Vince. Hello? Oh, no, I'm sorry. I put the wrong pot up. Hello, Vince.
Hi, Bob.
Oh, by the way, that was inside baseball. We call radio faders pots, by the way. I pretend it's a long story. Did you see I just threw you under the bus even before you were on?
Of course I
Isn't
heard
that a great gift?
That's to be expected. Hey, did you see the images from this solar telescope out in Hawaii about the surface of the sun? Mm-hmm. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I understand those pictures are hot.
Are they ever? They were talking about how the corona of the sun, which is actually not the sun's surface.
Is this a theme now? Corona beer, coronavirus,
yeah,
corona
that's right.
in the sun. Good grief.
Is way, way hotter than the surface of the sun. And how the sun kind of is made up of all these little particles that are boiling plasma. And as they get hot, they rise to the surface. They give off the heat, then they drop back down, and other particles replace them. Well, they're little particles when you talk about the sun, but they're actually the size of Texas.
Yeah, no, I know. You're talking about little particles. Let's not get into your intimacy life.
Oh, boy.
No. By the way, let's see if you know this. Do you know how long it takes certain atoms and molecules to get from the center of the sun to the surface? Like 10,000 years.
Yeah, the darn thing is huge. And
now you're talking about me.
Oh, boy.
No, God, I'm sorry.
And what they're, using this to research is like all of these solar storms and things like that, because when the sun puts out these storms, it's electromagnetic energy. And it could really screw up all of the grid in the world. I mean, that's what happens. If you want to destroy something, that's what these nuclear bombs do. They put out these electromagnetic energy that
and
just
it makes
fries
everything
the
turn. It fries
infrastructure.
everything. It's funny you say that. I have a huge inner nerd, and I listen to a lot of stuff. I shouldn't even go here, but I will because I'm going to be abused. As you know, one of my hobbies is to read about physics and stuff. And I was reading this piece, in fact, just yesterday. Did you know that our atmosphere? You want to know how thin it is? It is the equivalent in size when you do the comparison as the skin on an apple.
Really?
That's how narrow it is. That's how small. And we're dumping all kinds of garbage into that thing. and it saves us from, we would be dead from ultraviolet rays, we would be dead from different radio waves, or we would be cooked.
Yeah.
And we really do. Look, I'm not one of these, tree huggers that wants to, save a spotted owl, although I do appreciate how people feel. But we really got to get it right with the environment. We're really going to screw ourselves up.
There was a piece in this article that they were saying that these solar storms, major ones, happen about every 25 years. And there was a solar storm in 1989 that caused a major blackout in Quebec. I mean, the whole province just went dark.
Well, theoretically, Air Force One, the plane that the president flies on, which has the various means to make war if necessary, it has been, and I don't know how they do it, it is electromagnetic pulse neutral. I don't know how they did that, but thank goodness.
Yeah.
Because the president needs to be in control.
You know who they named this telescope after in Hawaii?
Who?
Senator
In our way, no, you see, that's not an inside joke, but you have to be of a certain age. The first led to impeachment. The Watergate hearings were chaired by this man by the name of Senator Sam Ervin, and he was your classic Southern gentleman. I remember his eyebrows used to twitch, and I loved that man. Mr. In Our Way.
Mr. In Our Way.
I still can't remember the words, but do you remember the time some guy was in trouble for indiscretions, and he goes, "I, sir, am too old to be guilty of any of the indiscretions of which you speak."
Well, I liked when he was saying he was had an exchange with Haldeman, and Haldeman was saying, he doesn't understand, and Sam Ervin says, "Sir," he says, "I know the English language. It's my mother tongue."
It's my mother tongue. Well, what about the other time when he says, "I'm just an old country lawyer, but I understand what I just said"? Remember, that's when I learned the word ubiquitous. Remember when he said to Mr. Dean, "You, sir, are the most ubiquitous man in Washington." And it means be everywhere. I was getting out the dictionary, ubiquitous. I thought I had to take a medication. And that's what, as you know, we were working in the same place at the time. I don't know if you were there yet. Yes, you were.
Sure.
You were in a different department. Remember, I had the New York Times stacked up like to my waist with the transcripts.
Yeah. I mean, we'd watch gavel to gavel coverage. Till 3 o'clock in the morning.
I come in tired, and by the way, speaking of that, it looks like it's just about all over but the shouting, because Senator Alexander said that he's not going to vote for witnesses. But that may hurt them in the longer run. It all depends on how you look at this, because these issues are still going to come out. And there is the chance, I don't think the Democrats would be crazy enough to do it, but legally, there's a chance that he could be impeached a second time. There's no double jeopardy if the crime is different. So,
yeah, I doubt if that will happen. I think they would be crazy to do that. The people who support Trump feel that A, he didn't do anything, or B,
well, now they realize he did, but it doesn't
and,
rise to the occasion. Yeah.
So it is what it is. I think that they're going to find him not guilty. He's going to revel in it, and hopefully we'll move on from there.
No, I don't want to move on too much. I think that I would always hope that these things would in some way modify the president's behavior. Like, please, because otherwise I'm going to wind up hanging myself from a pole out here. Just don't call everything a hoax.
Well, it's not going to modify this president. I think it's just going to embolden him. Because he's going to say, see, I didn't do anything wrong.
Now listen, and we'll start to get thematic here, because in about 20 minutes' time, we're going to be doing like a 45 minutes, almost an hour, about Super Bowl stuff. We have a number of people coming on. Who do you like in the Super Bowl?
I like the 49ers.
You like the 49ers? Why is that?
I don't know. Well, I always rooted for the 49ers. I like
who do you like? What do you like about the 49ers?
Well, I was always a big Joe Montana fan, and then after Joe was Steve Young. I didn't
know this. You had like a secret life?
No, I think, again, just like the Dallas Cowboys, they were a team that threw the ball.
Thank God Jake walked in. Vince is like this big, all of a sudden, I know this guy 60 years, and he's telling me, I love the 49ers. I slept with Joe Montana, Steve Young. Yeah, he's with you. I can't wait to hear Jake's picks of the week in about 30 minutes' time.
But it's going to be a really good game. I think this is a great matchup.
Oh no, you didn't say that.
What?
Say that again. This is the same guy that said, "No way the Titanic will sink." Go ahead. It's going to be a great game.
Well, I think it's going to be a really good matchup. I hope that the hype.
There goes the game, Jake.
Lives up to. the game lives up to the hype, because usually it's all of this and then the game's a blowout. But I think this one is going to be close.
I'm not even going to get to a bag of potato chips now. It's going to be a blowout in the first quarter. Vince has put this kiss of death on it. So really, Montana and then Steve Young and
yeah.
What about it when it comes to New York teams? Do you have a horse in this race?
New York teams?
Yeah.
No, I never. Well, the Giants were okay. I mean, Eli Manning was a good quarterback. The Jets I always liked originally, but I never was a hometown fan just because they're the hometown team. So, I despise the Rangers.
You did.
And,
oh my goodness.
So I like to. As I always say, is teams that play the game the way I think it should be played, and so I pick the team, no matter where it is.
So you don't root for any new. Well, you used to be one of these. You see, folks, when we were growing up in Brooklyn, there were two types of National League fans. There were the nice people who rooted for the Dodgers, and then there were the hard asses.
Oh, nice people.
And the hard asses that rooted for the Giants. He was a Giant fan. Am I correct?
Yeah, I was a Giants fan, but the Dodgers were the perennial losers.
So the Giants won 87 pennants, I suppose.
No, well, they won more than the Dodgers did.
God, and you hit people in the head with bats. You were like the black hats of the era.
But we had the golden age back then.
I know.
The three teams.
Snyder.
You had Willie Mays, Duke Snyder, Mickey Mantle on the three New York teams, and the guys below that, Roger Maris.
Yeah, let's not go there, because I still think back. I'd be semi-rich today. Remember when my brother wound up? My mom because all the Dodgers went to the dentist. She got a baseball. Snyder, Pee Wee Reese, Jackie Robinson, Campanella, Gil Hodges all signed it. It was a treasure.
Yeah.
My brother hit it on the factory roof across the street.
What were you doing playing with it?
I wasn't playing with it. He was the idiot. But then again, at that time, you didn't think anything of it. I mean, they went in my mother's office all the time, so I didn't think it was a dentist. What the hell did I know?
I know, and then the next year they picked up and went to...
they got out of Dodge. I actually stayed a Dodger fan for many, many years after that. It was hard to not like the uniform. Now it doesn't. The different owners, I don't know who's there. I was a fan right through, I guess, the era with the great manager, bleeds Dodger blue. What's his face?
Tommy Lasorda.
Yeah, Tommy Lasorda. But now I don't know anybody. And they had that infield that seemed to be together forever.
Well, there's still knuckleheads in Brooklyn who are saying, they got to bring back the Dodgers. Dodgers got to come back.
Calm down. See, folks, this is a Giant fan for you. He's making fun of us. These were the guys that went around. See, this is interesting. Your average Dodger fan had like a sweatshirt on and their Dodger shirt, whereas the Giant fans had like leather jackets and spiked the heels and whatever.
No, Dodger fans had a thing taped to their back said, loser.
The only thing we had in common then was hatred for the Yankees.
Oh, yeah.
That bordered on obsession.
Well, the Dodgers, when they went to Los Angeles, they had Drysdale, Koufax. Mm-hmm. I mean, they had some really top-notch pitchers.
Speaking of, who was a really good guy, and I know we got to go in a couple of minutes, but I had interviewed a couple of times and got to know a little bit Ralph Branca.
Oh, yeah.
And, because of that great home run that he gave up, the common zeitgeist does, he must be going through life, hitting himself in the head in the hammer.
Bobby Thompson.
No, but he was anything but. He was a very successful businessman and a tough guy in a nice way. And I still remember I asked him off air. Well, I asked him on air, but he answered it better off air about, was there anybody he was afraid of when he was, pitching? You know what his answer was? Get the bleep out of here. Of course not.
But even back then, they were stealing signs.
Well, yeah, and he was pissed. The only thing he was pissed about it, he said, is that Bobby Thompson never acknowledged it because they went out and did a lot of signings together, which he did for Bobby Thompson. It's funny, Bobby Thompson hit the home run and became famous, but had a hard time in real life, where Branca was very successful in real life. It's funny, like life is not always what you think behind the scenes. So.
Yeah.
All right, sure. Listen, I have a very nice woman that needs to come on now, so that means You'd
rather have a nice woman than me?
You betcha. Vince, thank you very much. Have fun.
Next week, brother.
Have fun rooting for the sissies. I mean the 49ers.
All right.
Take care. All righty, there goes Vince, and we got to get, I know she called in. We're going to get to her. Our next guest, no stranger to these microphones as we pass through 735, Janelle Albritton. She's the managing editor and the publisher of the Westchester County Post and the westchestercountypost.com. And we will talk with her. In fact, we're going to talk a little bit with her now about her sports editor who will be joining us for a while as we talk Super Bowl. But please, without further ado, welcome Janelle Albritton. Good morning, Janelle.
Good morning, Bob. How are you?
I turned my own mic off. I'm pretty good. It's great to hear your voice. Now, Janelle, you come, of course, from California. And now, are you a football fan? That's a no.
Not particularly, no.
But do you watch the Super Bowl? I mean, do you care? You're allowed to say no. No, okay. So now when you are in an editorial meeting with Steve, do you just say, go do whatever you stupid men do? How do you handle this?
Oh, I delegate.
Oh, I was going to say that because we wanted to do. So you don't have a horse in the race come Sunday. You don't care who wins. Then is that a fair statement?
No, not really. I mean,
okay,
I like watching the Super Bowl commercials.
Okay, a lot of people do. Can you tell us a little more about that? See, because we need to service not just the football fan, but the people. Everybody, even non-football fans, watch it. What about the commercials? What appeals to you?
Well, they're kind of a one-shot deal. They're so expensive, and I like watching creative, fun stuff, and of course you can catch them later on YouTube. So I don't feel like I have to watch the Super Bowl game to catch the commercials.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I just was wondering.
I'm really not in the target market.
Okay, no,
I'm more interested. I'm more interested in social issues that involve athletes or team owners and managers. I was just reading an article. What's this flap about the owner of the Saints being involved with withholding names of priests who are being accused for sexual abuse?
That doesn't even come. But I didn't know that the owner of the New Orleans Saints. That's been going on in every city in the world.
Yeah, he's Catholic.
Yes. Have you ever seen the movie Spotlight? The one about how
no, but I know it. I know what it's about.
Oh, it's this has been going on.
I don't think I could stomach it. I have friends who saw it and they told me about it, and I wasn't sure I want to sit through it because it's so gut wrenching.
It is, but you know what? As a journalist yourself, it is a good example, second only to, at least in my view, All the President's Men, on what good journalism could do. So on that basis,
that's true.
And what good reporters can do, and how they have to really dedicate themselves to get to the bottom of the story and take many risks to do it. So
that's true.
Now, speaking of what you do, and speaking of your paper, what kinds of stories are you working on?
I am focusing right now on wellness articles and helping people feel better. Helping them learn what the impact of meditation is on our brains and our minds.
Yeah, you have been taking a lot more, talking about meditation more. What is the impact of meditation on the brain and on minds?
It can really help put the brain into a different wave state of alpha or theta, where deep healing can happen in the body. Learning to unplug from the high beta waves and slow things down to more in the alpha theta range is where the body can restore itself. So, back in the day when we were being chased by a T-Rex, our stress response helped us escape and survive.
Yeah, like
nowadays,
running like a hamster on crack away from the. That's my solution.
Yeah, running to where all the blood goes to to the limbs to fight off a predator or to escape a predator.
Mm-hmm.
But now, if that predator is, say, a coworker in the desk next to us, we're always in that highly alert, vigilant state. And it's a problem because we were never supposed to be in that state for extended periods of time. And so what happens when we're in the stress response, our systems like the immune system, digestion, restoration and repair, general maintenance just simply doesn't happen.
Yeah,
And
how do you tie this into? We know that stress revs up a lot of different hormones, and it triggers the inflammation response, which then triggers all kinds of problems from heart attacks and everything else. How does meditation deal with that? Because it seems to be related in some way.
yeah, meditation, there are different techniques of meditation, but essentially it is the art of being in the now. And the meditation that I like the best is the one that has us focusing on gratitude, to really focus on what we're grateful for, and just to be in the present moment. And the body goes into a completely different mode at that point. And that in turn triggers a cascade of, 12 or 13,000 different hormones in the body that can help repair and reduce inflammation.
Well, that does
All of
make
this is as science advances, we're learning more and more about the mystical, and we're demystifying the mystical and learning more about it.
Well, yeah, I prefer, as you know, the demystification of the mystical.
Yeah. Check out Joe Dispenza's latest book. I really love it. It's
Just
called
say that again?
Joe Dispenza.
Oh, Joe Dispenza. Okay.
D-I-S-P-E-N-Z-A. His latest book is called Becoming Supernatural. It will blow your mind.
Supernatural. You know me, I always
lot
get
of research.
very, very, very skeptical when I hear supernatural, but I have an open
I know.
mind. But I have an open mind. So,
Yes,
again,
you
it's
do.
not Pez Dispenza, it's what? Joe Dispenza. I'd have a lot
Joe.
of fun if I knew him. But let me ask you a question. And again, we're talking with Janelle Albritton. She is the managing editor and publisher of the Westchester County Post.com. When you write about this stuff, what is do you go illness by illness, or do you go from the other end generically into the benefits of meditation? What approach do you take in writing about it?
I like to start with the general benefits, because stress is the cause of all disease. And my overarching purpose for being in the world is to help make life better.
Back up, my colleague. But stress isn't it can't be we have this. We have infection. We can't fight off every infection with meditation. Clearly, I would imagine you can, because it induces so much rest. It helps mental illness. It helps us, as you said, with our immune system. But do you think that stress is the cause of all? That's a broad statement.
It's a pretty broad statement. I would say the few exceptions might be, exposure to radiation, or, toxic exposure in our food or in our air. But even then, if our immune systems are strong, we can fight off a lot of this. So people are concerned about the coronavirus, and rightfully so. But I think if we focus more on enhancing our immune systems and practicing good hygiene, prevention is where it's at. And the best thing we can do to protect our health is by managing our stress levels.
Well, boy, I couldn't agree with that more. Again, our guest, Janelle Albritton. So, what are you writing about right now? Are you breaking any stories, or will you be putting out any features about this or other topics?
Yes. Well, in answer to your original question, right now the Westchester County Post.com is focusing on Steve Callis's work in the sports. Mm-hmm. In some of my work in wellness, and I'm building relationships with new contributing writers in topics of their expertise, restaurant reviews, and focusing on venues that support live music. So we've got the arts and entertainment, and the food, the dining, and wellness.
It just reminded me of something. There's a trend in publishing now, at least, and this is not an intended pun, no pun intended, but you sandwiched in your restaurant and food stuff among all these other cerebral endpoints of interest. I don't mean to throw. Yes, I guess I do mean to throw the Westchester magazine under the bus. All of a sudden, every email I get from them is about food. Now, I realize that they got to cater to their audiences. Are the people of Westchester that dumb? Is that all they care about is food?
Ooh, I love food.
No, so do I. We all do, and I get it. But what's the
experience.
point? What's the point of reading a magazine to learn about food? Well, anyway,
Well,
it's just.
Your point's well taken.
No, it's just
Isn't
it's
it
such an
still Restaurant
August.
Week?
It's such a popular and well-known magazine, but I'm going to lay out money for a magazine. Really. I mean, if I would like
Well,
a
that
memo.
might be where.
Guess what? Janelle Albritton opened a new newspaper. There's 6 people were killed because they ate a fried taco. The school board can't get out of its own way because they want to look the other way and make everybody pass the test, even if they can't complete a sentence.
Right.
No, I guess my views of journalism, and I don't, and it's. I hope they make a lot of money. I know some of the people who run it, and they have to cater to their audience. Maybe I'm criticizing the audience, but if I get one more email with the word foodie in it, I'm gonna choke. I just got.
Oh, don't choke.
Just had to get that off my chest.
But isn't it Restaurant Week or
No,
right?
it's
around
Restaurant Week everywhere. And look, I love restaurants. I love food. I am what we call in Italian a morteram. I'll eat roadkill if you prepare it properly. But good grief, every email, Westchester Magazine. Come on, just say. By the way, today we're talking about souffle. But 6 people got murdered in this town because of thus and so. Give me a story to read. Tell me about a human being. Tell me about some science, some art. Don't keep telling me about a ham sandwich with every email you send. See, that's one of the great things about doing this radio station, and it's going to cost me sponsors. Like, for example, one of my mantras is, I've never been in a car dealership that I trusted in my life. But yet that's not going to get me car dealerships unless a car dealership wants to be the one I could say, I trust these guys. Now, if a car dealership can get me to trust them, there may be an afterlife.
There you go.
All right, I'm waiting for your.
Anything is possible.
I got to go because your employee is on the other line, and we need to get to him.
No, my colleague. Colleague.
Thank you very, very much.
My friend and colleague.
Westchester County Post. And we're going to take a quick break before we go to Steve Callis because we need to do a number of things. First of all, we need to get Jake in the seat of honor. Coming up, will we be able to get a hold of Mr. Poliquin? He's still sleeping. We'll see if you can get him, and we couldn't get him. Okay, but Jake's Picks is coming up. Bud Poliquin, if we can manage to get him by 8:20. And, of course, the man who's on the phone, he's got to wait a minute as we reset. We're passing through 7:48 now. He'll be with us at 7:50, Steve Callis. He is the sports editor for the Westchester County Post.com, a broadcaster, writer, you name it. It's Super Bowl time. But first, we need to share the weather with you. All right, I'm looking at it. Looks good, some sun, just like the weatherman said. I guess I'm the weatherman in this context. 33 degrees. Going to get up to maybe 43 today, between 40 and 43. It's going to average out about 40. But we'll have a few breaks of sun, as I'm seeing right now. Then mostly cloudy, highs around 40. The wind out of the west to south, 5 to 10 miles an hour. Tonight, cloudy skies with a slight chance for a brief passing rain or snow shower. Lows, that's tonight, around 34. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy with a slight chance for a passing rain or snow shower throughout the day. Mild with highs around 43. Sunday, I know they said there'd be snow, but there's not going to be any snow. Super Bowl Sunday is also Groundhog Day. Imagine some people actually believe that stuff, but it's fun. Partly sunny and breezy with highs around 44 degrees. Sunday night, partly cloudy with lows around 36. And Monday, mostly sunny skies. The high will be 52. And the weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. The bottom of the hour is brought to you, as the top of the hour will be, but we'll rephrase that then. Aging Issues Management and their partners, Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, plug-in virtual reality, and we'll get to Dominic's Fine Cigars in a moment, and of course, United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. It is 7:50, and this is the time of the day where we do stuff a little differently. On Friday, at any rate. It's time for Jake's Picks of the Week, his final pick of the year. We're going to talk about his record, we're going to talk about the Super Bowl, and we're going to talk with Steve Callis as well. This segment is brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente Patrons and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located on Boston Post Road in Larchmont, open 7 days. And as we bring Jake on, we want to have a little bit of a party with these knowledgeable gentlemen. Please welcome also Steve Callis. He is the sports editor for the Westchester County Post.com. He has been a broadcaster in our region, a podcaster in our region, a sports writer. He did a terrific piece in the Westchester County Post about Roberto Clemente. We love to have him. We love him when he's here. First, say hello to Jake. Good morning, Jake.
Morning.
Good to see you. What is your record right now?
It was a good year. 30, 23, and 2. Very
That's
profitable
right.
year.
That's right. You had a big, you had a great 18th hole, if you will.
Hard to do that against the spread, Bob.
I know it is hard, but you did do it. Okay, and without further ado, please welcome to our microphones once again, Steve Callis. Steve, good morning.
Good morning, Bob. Great to be with you and Jake, as always.
It's Super kind of Super Bowl Friday. I have the Post, which is the best sports paper on the planet, God bless them, in front of me with all the information. But I think what we should do is talk a little bit about it. At 8 o'clock sharp, we'll get Jake's Picks of the Week, and then we'll talk more. But Jake, do you have any more questions for me? We've been doing this thing all week where he asks me questions, and then we have to see how I do. And you could do so, too.
No, we got to get Steve locked in.
Okay, let's get Steve locked in. You tell him what we're doing.
All right, Steve, you know prop bets, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
All right.
What are they called?
Prop bets.
Prop bets, is that like the Rockettes? Am I going to see
Propositionals.
beautiful legs? Oh,
Yes, you will. You will see beautiful
I try,
legs.
Stephen. I try.
All right, Steve, you ready?
Let's go.
Yeah.
How long will the national anthem be? Over or under 2 minutes?
I'll go over.
We are all, the three of us are all
right,
in
let's
agreement.
go. All right, let's go.
Length of the final word, brave, during the national anthem. Over or under 5.5 seconds?
I'll go over. Everything's magnified at the Super Bowl.
I know. I'm with you. Bob is with the under.
That's right. Bob is the contrarian guy.
And I will actually have a clock during the Super Bowl.
Go ahead.
Will the opening kickoff be a touchback?
Yes.
All three of us are in agreement.
Wow.
First score of the game, will it be a touchdown or a field goal / safety? So you can have the field goal and safety together.
I'm going touchdown.
Okay. You and I are together. Bob is with the field goal.
That's
/
right,
safety.
gentlemen. Wisdom. That's because I'm old. Go ahead.
All right. What will happen first? A sack or a touchdown?
You know what? I'm going to go touchdown because I'm sure we'll talk about it, but the 49ers have a great pass rush, but Patrick Mahomes has his feet.
My
and his
boy.
legs, so we'll see what happens.
Oh, I forgot. Wait a minute. I forgot to put Jake on TV.
No,
I've got the scared children and babies. There we go. Da-da-da-da-da. There's the man himself. I'm sorry, Jake. I got all excited about the run up here.
Who's going to win the coin flip?
I'm going to go Chiefs. I think that's a 50-50 proposition, huh, Jake?
I think you might be right about that one.
Boy, wow. But you guys, did you stay up all night for that one?
I flipped the coin.
It's 50-50, Jake.
Will a quarterback win the MVP?
Yes.
We are all in agreement.
All in agreement. Great minds think alike.
Jimmy Garoppolo, will he throw for over 242.5 yards? Throwing.
No.
We are all in agreement. All right, Steve. Now the big question: the number of J-Lo wardrobe changes during the halftime show, over or under 2.5?
You know, Bob, I know my boss was just on and said she barely watches the game or watches for the commercials. I like eat dinner during halftime of the Super Bowl. It's the longest pause in sports. But I'll say if it's 2.5, that means she'd have to change 3 times. I'll go under. I think she's only going to change 2 times.
Okay.
Bob and
I don't even know how they changed during the Super Bowl halftime, but that's a different story, I guess.
Bob and I are at the over with that one.
What if they change right there on stage? Would that keep you away from dinner?
No, I think that would be called a wardrobe malfunction. I think that would be called.
I think that's what it was called the last time with Ms. Jackson. Go ahead. Anything else to ask him? Anything else for me or any new stuff for either of us, Jake?
Total interceptions in the game, over or under 1.5?
Wow. I'll go over only because I think the Chiefs are going to be slinging it, and I think Jimmy G might have to sling it if they get behind.
If Jimmy has to sling it, they're going to lose.
Jimmy Garoppolo's a good quarterback.
He's all spoiled. He's got good backs running the ball.
He's better than Trent Dilfer, right, Steve?
He is better than Trent Dilfer, yes.
Who's Trent Dilbert? Who's Trent Dilbert? Who's
Dilfer.
He?
He's the quarterback of the Ravens when the Ravens killed the Giants.
Oh, yes.
I will say this, though, Jake, and if you've watched that game, and I'm sure you watched it when it was on, Trent Dilfer did make some good throws in that game, but yes, Jimmy G is better than Trent Dilfer.
Okay. All right. Any new questions for me?
No.
We're all okay. So now we've established all that. We've got 3 minutes to Jake's picks. We don't know who he's rooting for. You know, we had a good buddy of mine on the phone, and I've known this guy 60 years, and I didn't know he was a 49ers fan. I don't even know how he became a 49ers fan, if it was during a bad fever when he was a kid or something. I'd like you, Stephen, to analyze the teams, and I'd like you to take the 49ers first.
Well, look, I mean, the 49ers, I think everything points to the 49ers. That doesn't mean I'm going to take them. I think Jake is right. Jimmy G has gotten kind of a bad rap. They've run it so well that he only threw 8 passes last time, for example. But that doesn't mean he can't throw it. You know, I really think he was the heir apparent to Tom Brady because I really think Belichick thought, like virtually every other quarterback in the history of football, at 39 or 40, Brady was going to be done. He was going to tail off, and Jimmy G was going to be the quarterback for the next 10 years. And I think he was right, except Tom Brady didn't tail off. Maybe he did this year a little, but, you know, he went to 3 straight Super Bowls and won 2. So he was the guy, and they gave him away for a second-round pick, doing the 49ers one of the greatest favors in history. So I think the notion that he can't do it is not true. The question is, can he do it in the Super Bowl after not having to do it in the playoffs? This is obviously his first Super Bowl, his first big game. So I think Jimmy G is the key if the Chiefs can kind of slow down, not stop the 49ers running game. Now, the Chiefs were horrific against the run like the first 12 games of the year, I'm going to say, 10 or 12 games. But I remember the Patriots couldn't run it against them when the Chiefs, beat the Patriots. And they held Derrick Henry to 69 yards in the last game when everybody thought he was going to rush for 180 yards like he did in the first 2 playoff games. So I think part of the key is can the Chiefs defense stop the 49ers running game? I think the answer is they can slow them down. I don't think they're going to rush for 285 yards or whatever they did last game. But then the question becomes, if and when they slow him down, can Jimmy G sling it? I think he can. And I think he's got some good receivers. Kittle's the best tight end in football. Sanders is really good. You know, they got some good guys. So the bigger part of the game, though, is going to be obviously the San Francisco defense against Patrick Mahomes. Now, everybody's saying, if they can get a good pass rush with 4 and they drop 7 back into coverage, it's going to be a long day for Patrick Mahomes. And, I don't know if they weren't watching last game, but this guy's a magician. He's a magician with a gun for an arm, so he can run it. That 27-yard run for a touchdown last game was incredible. And so I think even though everything's going to point to the 49ers, I'm probably going to lean to the Chiefs. I know we're picking it shortly, Bob, but I think because of Patrick Mahomes, they have the best player, period. And it's not basketball where the best player can really, really, really dominate a game, but it is football where the quarterback can win or lose a game. So I think the key is for Patrick Mahomes, if they play zone, they can't play man-to-man. Richard Sherman, he's really good. He talks a lot. I love him as a football player. I don't like him as a talker. But the notion that he's going to guard Tyreek Hill is laugh-out-loud funny. There's no chance he can guard Tyreek Hill, for example.
Steve, would it shock you if Patrick Mahomes laid an egg?
I don't know that I'd be surprised. I was surprised when Lamar Jackson laid an egg in the playoffs. And they're going to try that contain thing. The difference between Jackson and Mahomes to me is if you contain Mahomes in the pocket, he's a great passer. He's not a good passer. He's a great passer. Jackson is not a great passer. He's a good passer. He's getting better. So I think I'd be surprised but not shocked. But that's more because San Francisco's defense is so good. You know, his stats against the Chargers, and there was one other good defense he faced, has not been good. But the guy was hurt half the year. You'll recall in the Titans, when he came back against the Titans, everybody was like, wow, he threw for 440 yards and 3 touchdowns his first game back, and they lost. But everyone forgot he couldn't run because he was coming off a dislocated knee. Now he's 100%. Their team is 100%. So I'd be surprised. I would not be. I'm sorry, I take that back. I would be shocked, but not surprised. I think he's a big-time player already. He's the coolest guy in the game, and I understand it's his first Super Bowl. But he lost to the Patriots twice last year, you'll recall. No fault of his own, right? And they beat the Patriots this year. Different Patriots team, but great Patriots defense. And I think he's going to be fine. I don't think he's going to get rattled, if that's the question.
I agree with you 100%. I think the game comes down to the 49ers defense, 100%. And it's a 55-point over-under, and you just got to do the math. It tells us, and it's a 1-point spread, it tells us it's going to be in the 20s, 28-27. So who does that favor? A 28-27 game.
I'm going to root for the Chiefs on the 28-27 game because I think they're going to score touchdowns, and I'm not sure that the 49ers are going to score all touchdowns. Again, when Mahomes gets close, and I know they've been practicing on their red zone offense, but at this time of year, everybody practices what? Red zone offense, red zone defense. It's the Super Bowl. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. And again, I think the Chiefs are going to be able to score touchdowns, and I think the 49ers on occasion might have to settle for field goals.
Wow. Okay. Now, what we want to do is we're going to go to Jake's Picks of the Week. This is official. It's around 8 o'clock, and it's when we promise people we do it. There are people who have been making money or lost their homes because of Jake's Picks. Now, you're listening to Radio Westchester, folks. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone, but this is a special segment of the program preparing for the Super Bowl. Our in-house sports guru and the Abdullah himself with his crystal ball, Jake Schaefer. What's your record right now, Jake?
30, 23, and 2.
And he's about to make his final pick of the year. And with us is a regular guest on the program, well-known broadcaster, sports writer in our region, Steve Callis. But it is time for Jake's Picks of the Week. Now, remember, Jake's Picks of the Week are brought to you by our friends at Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente Padrones and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located on Boston Post Road in Larchmont. They're open 7 days. All right, folks. Wait a minute, let me see if I could do this. I got my little son. All right, Jake.
Well, this game is a coin flip. I can't figure it out, so I'll...
What do you mean you can't figure it out? You're our guru. You're the man. This is like the doctor telling me, Bob, you've got a chest pain, but I can't figure it out.
So I
No, you the man.
I go to Vegas. Vegas tells me the over-under is 55.
Yes.
They tell me it's a 1-point spread. So Vegas tells me the game is going to be 28-27.
Who?
That leads to a 49ers win. So give me the 49ers.
Oh,
give
no.
me the 1
Oh.
point. Give me the 49ers.
Oh, no. No. Okay, 49ers. You giving points?
I get 1.
Okay, folks. Now, this is Jake's big bet. You get 1 point with the 49ers. How confident are you, Mr. This is a tough one.
It's a coin flip. I can't figure the game out, so I did a little math, and Vegas never loses.
Vegas never loses, he says. All righty, for your consumption, Jake's official pick of the week, the 49ers. He gives a point to the Chiefs.
Gets a point.
Oh, you get a point? Mm-hmm. This started out with the 49ers and a change. So,
Chiefs
all right.
are our favorite.
Let's get, as a backup to that, we'll get him to analyze it in a minute if he can. Steve Callis, do you agree with his pick?
I do not. I think I agree. Everything kind of points to the 49ers. They're a better all-around team. They do have a better defense. I just think Patrick Mahomes.
My boy.
This is his coming out party, even though he's already been an MVP, even though he's already thrown for 50 touchdowns. The key for all of these young quarterbacks is, can I win the big one? Can I win the Super Bowl? And I think he's such a magician. See, he's 8 touchdowns, no interceptions, 66 completion percentage in the playoffs. So he's already done it in these 2 playoff games. And he's their leading rusher with 106 rushing yards and a touchdown, which was that incredible 27-yard touchdown run against the Titans right before the half. So I understand Jake's analysis. But I think the Chiefs have this wild card, and his name is Patrick Mahomes. And don't forget his weapons, Tyreek Hill. Nobody's running with him. If they play man, they're going to be throwing it as far as he can throw it. If they play zone, Kelsey's one of the best receivers in the league, if not the best receiver in the league, in finding open spaces in the zone. And Sammy Watkins is like an afterthought, and he's great. So I think they're going to put a lot of points on the board. I don't know if you asked for an over-under, but I'm going to go over.
Yeah, we're going to go, yeah. What do you over or under?
Over.
Well, I have to go under.
I just think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I mean, remember that New Orleans shootout earlier this year where San Francisco beat them? I think it was like 48-46. It's like a street game. It might evolve into that, and if Drew Brees can put up 46, I'm not saying the Chiefs are going to score 46, but there's film to show how you can beat the vaunted 49ers defense.
My goodness, I must say, I don't know as much football as you guys, but you're actually helping me to understand this game, and particularly this matchup. A question for both of you. Is this the matchup at the beginning of the season, knowing these teams, knowing these players, that you would have hoped for as football fans?
I would have loved to see Aaron Rodgers one more time.
Drew
Brees one more time.
Okay,
Tom
but that's
Brady,
sentimental.
even Tom Brady.
Well, always Tom Brady. What about you, Steven?
Well, the 49ers were 4-12 last year. Jimmy G missed the whole season. I don't know if you could have foreseen such a turnaround. Could they be a good playoff team? Yes. Or could they be a playoff team? Yes. So I didn't really think that the 49ers would be there. Of course, as the season went along, you saw how good they are. You know how good Kyle Shanahan is as an offensive coach. But it's been their defense. They've only allowed 15 points per game in the postseason this year and 252 yards a game. That's very low in today's NFL. So I didn't really see that. The Chiefs, of course, because of last year, you know the story, I'm sure Jake does. If D Ford doesn't go off sides and Brady throws that interception in the championship game, the Chiefs would have gone to the Super Bowl last year. And it might be simplistic to turn it on one play, but literally he threw an interception on that play, and the only reason it was called back is because D Ford lined up like a yard off sides. It was bizarre to see the replay.
Yeah, put him on.
And now, funny thing, of course, as Jake knows, D Ford is one of the top pass rushers for the 49ers now
I knew
against
that.
the Chiefs. Yeah.
I got a question for both of you. No, because we're going to stay on till 8:35 with this stuff. In fact, Anthony, frequent caller, also supporter of the program, has just popped into the studio with his new neck brace because we show you on TV. There he is, folks. What does he look like, Bob? He's not a meanie. He's Anthony. All right, so here's my question, and this happens, and your mic's on, Anthony, so join the conversation. We're talking about the Super Bowl. Okay. What are the chances, and don't throw anything at me, any of the three of you, what are the chances that Mahomes chokes and does, and just has one of those games that happen?
We already went over this.
I heard it on the way in.
What do you mean you heard it on the way in?
Exactly what I said.
Who said that? I hate you more now. No,
there is a chance. There is a.
Did you actually say that?
Yeah.
We
Well,
talked
I was
about
looking
it.
at my stats here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so did your guest on the phone.
I need you. It's bad enough on the phone. It's like a cop car.
I would say
in.
there's a 39% chance.
30. That's pretty precise. What do you think, Steve? I'm sorry I missed it. I was probably taking care of something, or my brain stopped. Is there no chance of that? One of those
I
deals.
think I think there's very little chance. Patrick Mahomes, again, he's already been an MVP in the league. He's already thrown 50 touchdown passes in the season.
Well, I heard that.
He's been great in these playoffs. 8 touchdowns, no picks. So I would be. It would be shocking to me if he chokes. Again, he's playing an incredibly good defense. So don't mistake choking for playing against the first or second best defense in the league. But again, I think Mahomes is a magician, and I think he's going to show it on Sunday.
All right. Now we have a new person. I don't know if you've ever heard this man call the show, but he's a friend of the program, and he visits from time to time when he's not calling to annoy me, call me out on something. Anthony, welcome to the program. Anthony, who do you like in the Super Bowl?
There's no way I can't go with KC.
Yeah, okay. See, are you a Mahomes man like me?
I'm only a Mahomes man. I'm a wild card man, and that's what he is. He's a wild card. You can tell me, he's got some record in the playoffs, absolutely, but let's face it, rookie, it is what it is. As much as I respect San Francisco's defense, they're going to have to make a decision, I think, as Steve said earlier, whether they want to try to play the box where the defensive ends come up and try to keep him contained. But the difference here is, and I believe Steve said it earlier, he is a superb passer, and that's the difference. All he needs is for somebody just to turn around on their pattern. If he gets, just delayed for a second, he'll find them. Or all he needs is 6 inches of space. And I don't mean space as in daylight. I mean space between the defender's tips of their fingers and the palms of the receiver. He'll get the ball there.
What say you, Steve, to that analysis by our guest?
I totally agree with that analysis. I mean, I said some of it before, but yeah, I think he's the wild card. He's a magician. He can do it, and I think it's really his coming out party, even though he's already a star. You need to win that Super Bowl, I think, if you're going to be a superstar in the league. That doesn't mean you could be a quarterback. You could be Trent Dilfer and not be a superstar and win a Super Bowl, but that's because of the Ravens' defense against the Giants years ago. But this guy, again, nothing phases him. His father was a pitcher for the Mets. I assume you know that, Bob.
Yes, I do.
And so, probably the growing up in the kind of major league clubhouse, for example, which he's talked about, he's been around, famous players and famous people, and he is not fazed by anything. And I don't think it's going to start now. Again, San Francisco has a great defense. They might be able to defend the team as a whole, the Chiefs, but I don't think so.
And Bob, he's also very grounded.
Very level-headed guy. Yeah.
And driven by faith.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yes.
Religious guy, too?
And I think that aids him a lot in the sense that when you're driven, and I'm not talking about any
but it gives him a sense of inner peace.
Right, and it also gives you a sense of, okay, this was a bad play. Things will balance out. You know what I'm saying?
He's not thrown by a screw up. Yeah.
Now, that's not saying he's
that he won't
not going to have
up.
a bad
right.
game. He's still human. He's still, he doesn't walk on water yet and all of that. Okay? But I just think that he, as an individual player and as a player who can most affect the outcome of a game, right before a place kicker. I mean, and I think that may be the deciding factor.
I got something for the three of you, and I want to remind people it's 8:14. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. I'm he. This is Radio Westchester, your radio station at the train station, and we've set this. We've been in the middle of it now, about 20 minutes left, actually, of talking about the Super Bowl. It's a special event in America. And I want to put this to the three of you, and I want to start with you, Jake, because you've been doing this all year. Your record is pretty good. I want the three of you to think of, you guys are 3 football fans. You know the sport. A lot of people, there are sports guys like me who really aren't up on their football. There are millions of Americans, and there are people listening to this program who are casual fans. In terms of I'd like you to dumb it down for us just a bit. What are people looking at? I'll tell you what I infer from the little I know and from listening to Jake for a year, for several months, is we've got the greatest offensive threat in football today with a mediocre defense playing against a team with a great defense and a good, not great quarterback. That's what I see. But Jake, give me your take on that, then Steve, then Anthony, if you would.
I think San Francisco is going to come out throwing the ball. I think they're going to try and throw punches with Kansas City. I think they're going to try and keep up
You
with
mean
Kansas City.
Smash mouth kind of thing?
They're going to try and go right down the field. Garoppolo's going to go in the shotgun. He will throw the ball a lot, and they're going to try and intimidate Kansas City to start. I think it's going to end up a smash mouth game.
You do. So, but at first you think they're going to be gunslinging, and then
I
they're
do.
going to go into the trenches. What about you, Stephen?
Well, I think it's interesting because normally, and Belichick is the one who, of course, has changed the league like this. Normally nowadays, if you win the toss, you defer. And so you get the ball in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if the Chiefs win the toss, I think they should take the ball because they want to go on the lead. One of the reasons they could stop Derrick Henry and hold them to -1 yards in the second half
Okay.
in the championship game is because they had the lead. And once you put these guys coming from behind, now I think Jimmy G is actually better than Ryan Tannehill in terms of throwing the ball down the field. But I think if the Chiefs get out to a lead, I think it's going to be hard for the 40. And I don't mean 7-0, I mean 14-3 or something like that. The difference between the Chiefs and virtually everybody in these playoffs, is they have the ability to come back. They came back from 24-0. They came back from 10-0 and 17-7 against the Titans. The teams they were playing, like the Titans, don't have the ability because they're so run-heavy. I won't say San Francisco can't come back, but I think it's going to be much harder for them to come back from a deficit than it would be for the Chiefs. If the Chiefs are behind, what were they losing, 24-0 to the Texans? You're worried, but it's not like they can't score.
That's ridiculous.
They're
I know.
that good, and I think that's the difference, frankly. That the Chiefs have the ability to get behind and still win, but if they get out to a big lead, they're going to be very, very tough to beat.
Okay, I'm going to come up with an analogy in a minute. Anthony, what's your take? And think of people like me. In fact, let me preface it before you answer, then we'll go back to these guys. If you were likening it to a boxing event, the way Ali was great, gifted, quick hands, but wasn't a knockout guy. Then you had Foreman, who if he connects with you, your head's going to go flying into orbit. Who's the Foreman here? Who's the Ali? And what are we talking about?
Well, first of all, I agree with Steve as far as deferring goes. Once Kansas City gets out in front, there's almost no way to catch them. And I think that Jake's recipe there is the flautist recipe for...
take the ball and...
No, flautist as in commit suicide.
Oh! All right, Jake, with that, who's the Ali? Who's the Foreman here, Jake?
Well, the Chiefs are Foreman.
The Chiefs are Foreman? See, I would think that they're the Ali with the, And
no, they have the firepower.
Oh, because you're thinking of punching.
Yeah,
it shows how my analogy didn't work very well.
Scoring, Kansas City on paper, I think everybody would agree, is the better team. And the defense, the only way to hurt Kansas City is to keep their offense off the field.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so which means you got to hold the ball, but doesn't that prescribe a running game? I mean, a running game then?
A running game or very short, quick passes.
Okay, now I need the three of you to help me with something else. Again, this is someone who was only brought back to football. I mean, like 30 years ago, I followed it fairly with some deeper interest. How long have they been using the shotgun this extensively? How long has that been going on? I don't remember. Well, I remember watching the old Chief Raiders rivalry. And Steve, I don't know if you remember or you read about it at all as a younger person, but I never saw a guy in the shotgun then.
Well, that's not the question. The NFL has gone. They've taken the playbook from college, the run past option. Do you know what that is?
Excuse me.
It's
the run past option is when the ball. No,
they've used the shotgun a long time,
okay.
But it's evolved into, they've kind of gone into the college playbook.
But why do that? I mean, I realize it gives them a couple extra seconds to throw the ball, but...
Because they got the kids out of college that can run, use their legs, and throw the ball. Now you don't have to be 6'6", big, burly guy. Stand
Leave me
around,
out of this.
Look down the pocket. They like to mix it up a little bit.
Not only that, you get a third and short. You're not bound to a running play.
You talking to me?
That's that. Yeah, well, short, small. You can,
minuscule. Well, what about you, Steven? I mean, there were these years when I didn't follow it that much, and then I come back to the game and I see the quarterback taking it that fancy step and then throw the ball. When did it change? When did it happen?
Well, I think in terms of the short passing game that the Patriots have perfected that, and that's over 20 years now. I mean, their running game hasn't been good historically, yet they'll throw first Wes Welker and now Edelman. You'll see these 3, 4, 5-yard catches. Kansas City has a similar guy in Kelsey, although a totally different type receiver, a big tight end. But the short passing game has replaced the run to a large degree. Running backs have been devalued. I don't agree with that necessarily. When Ezekiel Elliott runs the ball well, Dak Prescott looks like a first-round draft pick. When he doesn't run the ball well, Dak Prescott looks like what he was, which was a fourth-round draft pick. And you can just look at whatever you think of Brady. Last year, I thought Belichick changed the script up on everybody by becoming a run-heavy team, the New England Patriots. And 50 years from now, they're going to look at that Super Bowl 13-3 and say, well, what happened that year? Because every other year it's going to be a high-scoring game, I think, including this year. The run-pass option, Jake is right. You now have these guys like Russell Wilson, like Lamar Jackson,
I get it now,
like
the run-pass
Mahomes.
option. I get it now.
And you also have
so that's changed the game as well.
See, the thing now I realize I've been watching something and I didn't know what it was called because I'll watch the game and intuitively I'll say, if they run it a little more, they may give their quarterback a little more room the next time out when you have the run-pass option.
The other thing
right?
specific to New England is when they lost Gronk, it changed everything because, there's a huge tight end who has, hands that are like stick 'em. So if you have that anything 3rd and 1 to 3 or 4, you either have to double up on him, which frees somebody else up, or basically concede the first down.
Was he just incredibly strong? Because he never it seemed to me to be that fast, Gronk.
At a tight end, you don't need speed.
You just need to be a monster, Jake.
Gronk was a freak. Absolute freak.
In many ways.
Jeez, Aaron Hernandez was amazing.
No, he
Incredible.
was. Yeah, he was. But now I want to ask you a couple of other things. And again, I'm asking these kinds of questions for people like me who are casual fans. I remember back in the day, there was a big emphasis made on fullback, halfback, and defensively, middle linebacker, left line. Why did those titles change, or why don't we hear them used as much anymore? We'll go with Steve.
Well, the fullback has really become a blocking back over the last 20 years. You go way back, and I know you go way back, Bob. You watch films of the old Green Bay Packers.
Yes.
Jim Taylor was the fullback, and Paul Hornung was the halfback, and that was more of the traditional
exactly.
the way it was. But Taylor ran it as much or more than Hornung. But nowadays, the fullback is really that up back.
He's the first blocker.
And I know Anthony's right about them losing Gronkowski, the Patriots, but they also lost Devlin, who is probably the best fullback, and he's the up guy who is the blocking back nowadays. If he gets 10 carries a year, that's a lot. So the fullback position has totally changed, and the halfback is really, most of these guys, they just have a one running back set now, and there are no fullbacks. But some teams, like the 49ers, they use a fullback. Like the Patriots, when Devlin is healthy, they had a linebacker at the end of the year, Landon Roberts, as the fullback. Those are two teams who today use the fullback as a major blocking back. But most of these offenses, especially the sling-em offenses, don't even use a fullback because they're just going to go to the shotgun, as you said, maybe run the RPO with a running back.
Oh, run play, RPO, run pass option.
Run
Okay,
pass
thank
option.
you. Look, you're looking at me like the idiot I am. No, but I'm trying to help the fan like me.
You told me you were on the RPO now, so I thought I could go with the abbreviation.
No, I'm still watching. I hate everybody in this room.
That to me is how the game has changed at the running back position. And again, because it's a pass-happy league now, they've changed all the rules. The rules are all in favor of the offensive pass. Chicks dig the long ball, and chicks dig the bomb, I guess, in football. But that's just how it's evolved, and it's not going to go back, except I'll say it again. The Patriots changed the script last year. The Titans changed the script this year, and I think the 49ers are going to try and change the script.
Steve Callis, you gave me a segue there. Sorry to step on your words, but here's the segue you gave me. Again, as a casual fan, and speaking for those casual fans, we all love these receivers that could run like the wind. And it seems to me that one of the hardest jobs in football, I'm not talking about physically getting your back smashed, has got to be covering these people. And tell me about, I guess, what the defensive backs. What do you call? What's the defensive guy that handles a receiver?
You're right, defensive back.
Okay. How in God's name do they manage to? They must be worth their weight in gold to keep up with someone who can run like a gazelle.
Well, I think they're going to have to play zone. I mean, if they play man-to-man on Tyreek Hill again, I don't think there's a corner or a safety in the league who can stay with him. They're going to double him, I assume. But again, once you go zone, then Kelsey becomes an incredible weapon. He's, I think, the best receiver, tight ends or wide receivers against the zone.
Well, tell me about
that. He just
that.
finds the spots. You saw the 3 touchdown catches he had last game. They were all like 5 or 6 yards, but he found a way to get open with them dropping 7.
Let me ask you a layman's
8.
questions. Whenever I watch a zone defense in football, I'm tempted to want to say make a lot of short passes and run up the field. I mean, a zone defense,
not short passes. It's seam, what they call seams passes, where the two zones intersect, and if the defensive players can't decide when to drop off and when to let the next zone pick it up. Okay, and in my opinion, and Stephen, you can weigh in on this, the most important position in his own defense is the safety.
Right.
Because he has
That's the guy we couldn't think of. He's huge.
Decide which way they're going to lean to double up on whatever.
Those are the guys I couldn't think of that before. The defensive, the safety, the free safety.
And
he's got to be great.
They're make or break. They're either heroes or heels.
Okay, they really are, aren't they? Who's the best? Jake?
Safety?
Best free safety.
I just think that we're all forgetting about the 49ers tight end who might end up being the best player on the field. Kitchen. He's a fantastic player. I'm sorry, Kittles. I was thinking about the Cleveland coach. I always think about him.
Oh, Kittle?
Kittles, yes, he is.
That's a good.
You're coming off an illness. We understand.
Mr. Kitchen.
He might, I think.
He can cook up a great play. Sorry.
He might end up being the MVP of the game. Safety valve for Garoppolo. And he might do the exact. He might just tear up the Chiefs' defense.
Wow, this you guys are making it very exciting for lay people like me, and that's who I'm trying to help. Now, Stephen, you were talking a little. Who's the best?
I'd like Steve's opinion on the safety.
Yeah, Steve. I was just going to go there. Thank you, Anthony. Stephen, who's the best safety in your mind, and then we'll find out who the best receiver in the game is.
I think Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, who is now on the Chiefs, he was an incredible pickup for them. He was great in college at LSU. He's been great in the pros. And I think he's a guy who, if Jimmy G is going to throw it deep, he's a guy you're going to have to deal with. I think the problem is going to be more on the other side of the ball. But when San Francisco plays cover 3, which means they have 3 guys deep, including the safeties, apparently the plan is going to be to go so deep that Tyreek Hill can't run past them. And again, if that's the case, it's going to open up everything underneath, short passes and seam routes. And they have so many good guys. I'll say it again, Sammy Watkins, nobody remembers who he is, and he caught a 60-yard touchdown pass against the Titans last game that was probably 50 yards in the air. So I think they have so many weapons, and that's why I think it's going to become a shootout, and that's why I think it's going to become a high-scoring game with the Chiefs winning.
Yeah, Bob, when you talk about a safety or a quarterback reading a defense, especially on a passing play, when a quarterback drops back, the first thing he's trying to read is where that safety's going to lean.
Okay, so he's looking out downfield at that.
Unless that receiver has 40 yards clearance, he's looking the other way. He's looking for a secondary, if that's the primary or the third drop off guy.
Now, who generally, gentlemen, and Jake as our in-house wise man, who makes the defensive calls? Do they make most of them at the line of scrimmage, and is it the captain of the defense?
No.
Who does?
They have coaches on the sidelines
that
call them in.
In his ear?
And sometimes they even get transferred from the booth up top.
And who do they give that message to? Who's calling it on the field and when we line up?
The
captain.
Coordinator, correct?
Yeah.
Well, on the field
on
as
the
a captain. You'll always see someone put their hands over their helmet.
What is the captain of the defense, Jake, looking for? When they line up, you got the guys up in the booth, but the captain of the defense, and you see people change and adjust.
Well,
what are they looking for?
Are they in shotgun? What formations are they in?
We'll say in shotgun.
Are there 2 tight ends?
We'll say in
there
shotgun.
A fullback?
Okay, I got it. Okay.
Is there the speed team? Is it the big team?
So then that person has to be able to read that.
Are there 2 tight ends or 4 wide receivers?
These are all
that's
how they
the
make
things
the
they're
call.
trying to read. And I think to me what's very interesting is as we all know, quarterbacks can audible at the line. But I don't know of very many defensive captains that are actually given that leeway.
Stephen?
No, I think it goes just like the quarterbacks have they're told to place in their helmet. The defense, it used to be the middle linebacker pretty much always has the same.
That's what I
thing in his
remember.
head.
Yeah.
And all the plays are all the defenses are called down. There's some at the line of scrimmage adjustments right before the snap, just like with quarterbacks when they go kill and kill the play. There's also changes right at the line of scrimmage, right before the snap of the ball by the defense as well. But generally, it's the same as the offense. It comes from upstairs. It's not always the middle linebacker, but usually, or it used to usually be, and they're told what defenses to set up, and they tell everybody else what defense to set up.
8:31. We have 4 more minutes left in our special segment on the Super Bowl. With us, of course, Jake Schaefer. He's our sports guy and our sports handicapper for you who love to gamble. Steve Callis is a well-known sports journalist, both broadcast and of course, print, and right now he's the editor of the sports section of the Westchester County Post.com. He's on the Philly Fanatic a lot, and ESPN, and podcasts, and so forth. And of course, one of our regular contributors and a friend of the program, Anthony Goletta, stopped in, and it's been good to have his take as well. Gentlemen, what are the outliers? What are the things that could surprise all of us that we haven't thought about? And let's go to our handicapper first.
Mahomes. If Mahomes has a bad game, that would shock me, but it could happen. That would shock me. He's on the cusp of $400 million, but if he lays an egg, who knows?
On the cusp of $400 million. I want to be on the cusp of 40. Anthony? Okay, let's go to. Well, I wanted him to wrap it up. Go ahead. You're not going to give me an opinion. We'll be back to you. Steven.
I think Mahomes is going to play great. I think they might be able to contain him, but then it's still going to be a shootout. I think the bigger question is, frankly, if the 49ers can run for 250, Mostert, we didn't even say his name, he ran for 220 yards last game. So if the 49ers as a team can really blow the Chiefs defense off the ball.
See, that's what I'm looking for, a big surprise.
Yeah,
what could happen?
If that happens, then it's going to be a long day, and that's how you're going to keep Mahomes off the field with long drives of 70, 80, 90 yards with mostly running plays. That would be the Giants against the Bills in that 2019 Super Bowl win many years ago when they had the ball for 39 minutes or 40 minutes. That's probably going to be the game plan for San Francisco, and we'll just have to see if the Chiefs can at least contain them, because I don't think they can stop them.
Anthony, I'd like your reaction and then your wrap-up, your final pick.
First of all, I'm going with Kansas City, as I said earlier. But in my opinion, I don't think there are going to be any major surprises that are going to change the game. But I think the one thing that would and could definitely affect it in a big way, injuries. One key player.
I never thought of that.
One key player goes down, whether it's the tight end, whether it's even a lineman that can't give any protection or allow somebody to shoot, forces Mahomes out, and he'll find a way. Don't get me wrong, Mahomes will find a way to deal with it. But I'm just saying it changes your whole game plan.
No lineman, Jake, has ever won the MVP, have they, or anything like that?
Offensive lineman? I don't believe in
about defensive
I think a defensive lineman has a
possibility
in history, but an offensive lineman.
So what surprises do you think are possible then?
It could.
Could Garoppolo come up and be an MVP? All of a sudden, have a great game.
I think they're gonna come out and try and throw punches with the Chiefs. I think that they're gonna have to.
That's the surprise.
You can't. You can run down. You can go to halftime 0-0, and the final score could be 30-0 at the end of the game. So the 49ers are gonna come out and throw punches, I think.
Steven?
I'll go to Andy Reid. He's 23-5 after a bye week. He's one of the greatest coaches in the history of football. When he has a week off, they're going to have some wild stuff prepared for the 49ers. So I think we're going to see some trick plays, frankly. And I think that's going to be enough versus Kyle Shanahan, who you'll recall was the offensive coordinator for Atlanta. And I was at that game with my son, the Patriots fan, Bob. I've told you that poor parenting on my part.
Yeah, that is very poor parenting.
Or video games.
You might be allowed. It might be legal to have some euthanasia here, but anyway, go ahead.
I hope Janelle's not listening.
That's right.
But I think You know, in that Super Bowl, Julio Jones made the greatest catch in the history of football that will never be remembered and put them within a 40-yard field goal of going up 10 and winning the Super Bowl. And then they took a sack and they took a holding penalty and they tried to throw the ball instead of, if they ran the ball 3 times into the line, if they took 3 knees, Matt Bryant could have kicked a 40-yard field goal. And Shanahan said it hurts him to this day.
I bet it does.
Because a brilliant offensive coach made some incredibly stupid offensive calls, and I think that's why the Patriots won that game. So it's Andy Reid, who's already lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl, against Shanahan, who it's not his fault they lost a 28-3 lead, but it is his fault that they couldn't kick what would have been a game-winning field goal.
I got.
And so one of these guys is going to be Superman after that game because they'll have a Super Bowl championship.
Okay, I got one last question that I didn't ask, and I skipped over it. Are there any unusually gifted kickers, or that you just have the average punters and the average guys that get field goals? Anybody special?
I don't think there's a 64-yarder
within
any of them. But.
No. All right. Listen, Steve Callis, anything new? What are you doing this weekend on the radio and, of course, on the Westchester County Post?
Yeah, I'm going to be on 97.5 The Fanatic in Philly tomorrow at 1:10 with Joe Stazak. Today I'm going to shoot videos with the videographer. You know, Janelle is the videographer as well. We're going to do a Super Bowl preview, and we're going to do something, of course, on Kobe Bryant. And I do a podcast with Joe Stazak that I'll do later today, and Janelle will put it up at the WestchesterCountyPost.com. Hopefully later today, if not first thing tomorrow. So we got a lot going on this weekend, obviously. It's a busy
Will you
weekend.
do me a favor? This is going to get me in trouble. Would you bring a football and show it to Janelle?
Oh, boy, I hope she's not listening.
She didn't distinguish
look,
herself.
Janelle knows more than we think.
Yeah,
but, you know, she does have a whole thing. We'll talk about this another time with concussions.
Make it a nerve
CTE
football.
Well, she could give her a nerve football.
In high school and college. She's very much into that. We did a whole radio, her radio show, 10 a.m. Tuesdays.
Okay.
We did a whole hour on that, and maybe we should do it with you sometime, Bob. The other thing I wanted to mention, I was hoping you'd mention that hockey T-shirt that you got from your friends at the Westchester County Post.
Well, I did, but you know what? Today was football day. I will talk about it. It's a T-shirt that I should have brought in here, and I got it from the Westchester County Post. It said a man with a hockey stick, an old man with a hockey stick is dangerous. So I really appreciated that shirt. Stephen, thank you very much. And listen, when Janelle says to you, I love the way they dribble the football, don't say anything. Thank you very, very much. Now, Anthony, thank you for stopping in. And Jake, you get to wrap it up. Wait. This is the man who all year long has been holding the fort for us with regard to sports and football. Your final record before we go into the weekend, sir?
30, 23, and 2.
If you invested in him, you did better than the stock market. Jake's Picks of the Week. Now, this segment has been brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente Padrons and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located on Boston Post Road in Larchmont. They're open 7 days. And don't forget Monday. On Monday, we will have a full breakdown of the game. Jake will be in rare form. He will either be parading around the radio station, I'm victorious, or he will be eating humble pie, and we'll be sure to have some humble pie for him. Now, we're going to, one of the things we didn't get to this week, and we want to catch up with him now, is Hezi Aris from the Yonkers Tribune will join us. We haven't had our Yonkers report, and we're jonesing for Yonkers. Again, Stephen, Anthony, thank you, and Jake, well, Jake's a part of the woodwork here. We're going to take a quick break to catch up. This is Radio Westchester. We'll be right with you. All right. Why can't I hear myself? Oh, there I am. I just hit the wrong button. All right, let's take a quick look at the weather. And the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. And it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And here's what the weather looks like. We had our bit of sun. We won't have any more. It's going to be cloudy for the rest of the day. It's 34 degrees. It'll go up to 43. Cloudy skies tonight with slight chance for a brief passing rain. Don't worry too much about it, getting down to 34. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy with a slight chance for a passing rain or a snow shower throughout the day. Mild with highs around 43. Wind out of the northeast, 5 to 15 miles per hour. Saturday night, mainly cloudy, slight chance for a passing rain or snow shower. And Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday and Groundhog Day, partly sunny and breezy with highs around 44. Sunday night, partly cloudy with lows around 36. And as we get into the bottom of the hour now, we are supported by the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, the top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhdc.com. Aging Issues Management, their partner, Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. And he's still sitting here. Jake, great job with that segment and planning it out and giving me just enough wisdom to at least half know what I was talking about. Jake Schaefer, everybody. Great job, sir. We turn our attention to our main dish here, which is the local news and politics. And with us, one of the people, and he always gets embarrassed when I say this, but one of the people who inspired the building of this radio station, people like Bob Cox, who you know locally, and John Bailey, who was here yesterday, but one of the guys I've worked with for years, doing the hard, heavy lifting and being the man that covers Yonkers better than anyone else. Please welcome the managing editor and publisher of the Yonkers Tribune, Hezi Aris. Good morning, Hezi.
Good morning, Bob. Great show. I'm not a sports, aficionado, but that was a good show.
Well, you know what? One of the things we that's what everybody's talking about, and everybody cares about. And what I kept trying to do, these guys are very learned, Jake and Steven, is make it relevant for people like you and I that maybe don't watch it every week. You know what I mean? And make it fun. But you, sir, there's always something going on in Yonkers. What's your latest breaking story? You have a lot going on. We haven't spoken to you in a week.
Well, it's not something specific to Yonkers, but it's something that's going to impact Yonkers and the rest of the county and the rest of the nation, or actually really the state. Because New York State is trying to figure out if they should legalize marijuana.
Yes.
And that's become a really big issue because it seems to be driven by the need for money rather than, getting into trouble by doing so, because I found out that there are figures that show since a state actually authorizes the use of marijuana, the driving while under the influence of marijuana has gone up as much as 50%.
Huge problem.
That's very troublesome because the accidents kill people, and I don't understand why we're going to allow people to kill themselves and to kill others because they don't realize the effect of marijuana when they drive. And then the other thing too is also the problem with people who use marijuana who are underage, and the frontal lobe doesn't really mature until somebody's 20s.
Now, full disclosure, it's in my book, which, as you know, I serialized in your old paper. And if you recall, I had. And again, in college, I tried marijuana, not for very long. And the very last time I ever did it, it was a part of unsheathing a real incipient problem, insidious problem with depression. And I had a massive, and don't even call it panic attack, what they call panic fixation, where every muscle in my body cramped up, and if I was on a ledge, I'd have jumped off it. But again, there was underlying issues that it unsheathed. But the problem is that the frontal lobes and other latent problems that people have. Now, I'm not anti-marijuana. I'm okay with legalizing it, but it needs to be controlled. And frankly, it was better than drinking for the little while that I did it. But again, it can unmask other problems and cause serious problems when you're not yet fully mature. Is that a fair statement?
It is, except that I don't see the benefit other than financial for allowing to make it legal. It's not that I don't want people to try it if that's what they want, but there's no way to recognize if somebody's driving under the influence of having smoked marijuana before they get into the car.
Well, I wrote a note here. Have they found yet a way to test it? In other words, like now, if you and I were driving drunk, they could. No, they haven't, have they? Would it have to?
No, they can give you a breathalyzer test with regard to that, and And I guess they could also take a blood sample to find out. Marijuana is actually in the bloodstream for 30 days, so it could be checked, but that's about it. And but I don't think you have to give them a blood sample, and they wouldn't know if you were driving under the influence anyway if they stop you on the road. But that's really the big problem. We're going to have a lot of fatalities. And this is not just what we're talking about. This is what's going on with the AAA. They come up with figures all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Now,
and it's a real problem.
And there's a larger issue here, is there not, which you hinted at, which is it's all about gaining money. You know, a guy I'm sure you listen to when he's on my program, Dr. Sternberg, talks about this all the time.
Yep.
Cigarettes, they bring money.
That's it. It's all about money.
It really is all about money. Now, when you combine this, and I don't know if you've looked at this yet, with the fact how many times, I drive a lot, and you see so many rear-end collisions now because of texting.
Yep.
I don't know what's worse. But how do you feel about legalizing marijuana in general, and how do you think they should control it?
I think that, well, for medical marijuana, I don't have a problem with. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that we can trust, companies like the cigarette companies to tell us that everything is safe when we find out 30, 40, 50 years later that it's not. People have died because of what they said, and nobody wanted to believe truth from fact because we couldn't test it or figure it out. And they were the scientists, and they told us what to do. I just don't think it's safe, and I think it's very dangerous to allow people to do that. We got a problem, and I just it's like saying, well, I'm against people having guns, but if they kill people, I guess we have to tolerate that. That's not a good enough answer. There have to be there, but there's no way to control it. Unfortunately, it seems. So why would you want to legalize it if it's only for dollars? Look, I railed. Remember when there was a deal? Amazon wanted to invest in Queens.
Oh, sure.
And it was going to be they were going to invest and build for 15,000 special people who were basically a think tank.
Yes.
They weren't delivering packages, but they were going to be the think tankers of Amazon, and they were going to build out in Queens. It was going to displace some people, of course, and I don't overlook that, but the point is if you could build housing for, people who are earning $150,000 a year and up, then you could also have built affordable housing for other people in the same basic vicinity, and they wouldn't be so displaced. But we chose not to do it because Andrea Stewart Cousins, the Senate Majority Leader, decided to put the guy who's her deputy, Michael Gianaris, to put him on a special board of 3. So he was the third guy, and that board had to totally approve this construct of this inducement that the state wanted to offer Amazon. Well, they were going to give them a $3 billion incentive, a tax credit to do what they needed to do. But in 15 years, we would have been able to get $25 billion return. $25 billion return. And guess what? That would have taken care of the $4 billion that were in arrears as a state, IOUs to boards of education throughout the state. That's how much we owe. And then it would have taken care of this particular problem that we're dealing with now, medical insurance for people.
Yes, sure.
That's another $6 billion. Hey, we would have been able to resolve some of these issues financially, but because Gianaris didn't want it, it died. And now we're struggling to make this thing legal because we don't have any other options. But that's because we threw the other options out. There's always a balance, but we don't think it out.
No,
maybe not you or I, but the point is, I'm sorry if the state Senate couldn't figure it out.
One of the issues that I think I want to go back to, money. For example, do you have red light cameras in Yonkers?
Yes, we do.
There was a piece in White Plains. They made like $2.5 million with their red light cameras. And
right.
It seems like I was telling someone last night about what it's like to now go somewhere here in Westchester. You've got to you pay I can't go anywhere in my city, in this city here,
Mm-hmm.
without having to pay for parking. Yesterday was like
Right.
a raised business day, and I had a number of I had to visit clients and such. I have, and I keep the receipts, 5 parking receipts in my pocket. No matter where I went, right here, even at the train station, you can go broke just parking in this town. And so Westchester's found more and more ways to just suck money out of you electronically. And I don't know what the answer is. You know, same
Well,
thing.
you know, they have the red light. They have the red light district, for example, in cities like White Plains.
Yeah.
They have red light districts.
You mean
in
cameras?
Yonkers and cameras, and in other cities as well. But isn't it interesting? Paul Feiner, in the Feiner report that he writes, it turns out he says they won't allow it to happen in Greenburgh because Greenburgh's a town. I mean, how stupid does it get? If you find that it's prudent to protect people with red light cameras to slow them down or whatever you need to do, then why is it good for White Plains? Why is it good for Yonkers? Why is it not good for the town of Greenburgh?
Or alternatively,
And,
and I'm just saying this for discussion purposes, or alternatively, does it really show that it's safer? Or is it just a money grab? Do we know?
It probably was initially a money grab. I don't know how safe it is, but now they've accepted the cost of driving, and people don't know what to do about it, and we don't know what is safer.
Because, one of the things that I've always admired about Paul is the only public official in my lifetime on the radio now, which is almost 20 years, willing to what do you call it when you're going to charge people tax according to the real value of your house. He brave enough to do that, brave enough to push back on the whole Democratic Party, brave enough to push back on having a breakaway segment of his town. So I would like to think, just by reputation, that he probably thinks it's a scam.
He probably does, and it very well might be, except that the problem in Greenburgh that's been proven is that people drive too quickly.
Okay.
They also don't have enough money to build sidewalks, and so they're spending as much as they have, but then that also needs to come from the state, and everything needs to be authorized. But the point is people are driving too quickly, and there aren't enough penalties for that.
Well,
and
that's
there should
very
be a
true.
penalty. Maybe if you drive beyond the speed limit, maybe you should, and if you get caught, maybe you should get fined for it.
Oh, absolutely. No question about it. And I think
it says
so.
30, you go 30. If you're going 45, the hell with you.
Hezzy, do you have a horse in the race of the problems that we've run into with the new bail law?
Yeah, I think it's a real problem because people go in and then they allowed to depart, and some of them repeat the offense from yesterday again today, and if you get caught again, it goes on and on. It's a circle, and there's got to be a better way to contend with it because there are a lot of very violent people that are permitted to leave. So, and there's no discretion on the part of the judge, which I think would make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, that's my take too.
But we've also had a problem with incarceration. If you couldn't afford to pay your $50 fine, you were thrown into Rikers for months and months and months, maybe years, and that could traumatize people.
Well, there's no
to a great extent.
There's no perfect answer, but it can't be one size fits all. A judge has to have some discretion, it would seem to me. Now there was another law.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
There was another law that was overturned the other day, or at least put on hold, and that was a law to establish review of prosecutors. You know, you and I have been at this a while now, and I've often said the things that I've learned doing news that have bothered me the most, the number one thing, it really is who you know in this world. It still breaks my heart. But number two is I've not been impressed with the behavior of prosecutors and DAs in general. And why they do not want to have oversight is particularly annoying. Like any other profession, there should be oversight for prosecutors, particularly when we see the number, and you helped the most famous of them, Jeff Deskovic, when you were an editor of another newspaper, as did we here. Prosecutors need to be held accountable when they hide evidence, when they just pursue win-at-all-cost attitudes.
But it's not just the district attorneys. It's everywhere. We have perjurers who are police officers who lie about what they've done. They get warrants that are deficient, and therefore they exceed the warrant. There's so many issues like that, but the system does not care to really go after it. And that's part of the tumultuous anger that keeps on building and building and building in people. And we're walking around in societies where people are just angry. And they're angry because they potentially could be arrested for something they didn't do. And yet, most of the time, police officers are your best friends, and there really isn't a problem with them. But there's certain departments, and you could look in Westchester County, and there are many of them, who have wanting records.
When you say wanting records, say a little more.
Well, there was a recent case we actually posted. There was a guy by the name of Fogarty who was a police officer, and he was involved in a break-in in the Bronx. He got a warrant for housing, a 3-story housing structure that was owned by a former cocaine dealer who served 10 years in prison. Well, it was 3 stories high. The former cocaine dealer was on the ground floor, somebody else on the second floor, and another person on the third floor. Well, they only got a warrant for the ground floor and the second floor. And rather than legitimize that they couldn't find anything, Fogarty ends up going to the third floor and finds drugs over there and then lies about it on the stand. And so he perjured himself. And then, but the interesting thing is he was permitted to file for his pension before he was actually, admonished by the courts. This is the problem. It's like who you know, as you said, and we permit this atrocity of injustice to continue.
Well, you write...
And that's why people are angry.
Yeah, you write an awful lot about that. Last week with our changing schedule, one of the guys who jumped in your spot, maybe it was last week, the week before, you had a business meeting, was the great defense attorney, Murray Richmond. And he talked about just what you're talking about now, that he's very troubled by the system. Very troubled by it.
It is troubling. You know why? Because the problem is that it seems money speaks in everything. We've got people who are really, they're maligned by a process where they get paid for doing something or they're paid to look askance. And there's always money to be managed and massaged here and there. And people are doing great. Hey, we give people overtime when they shouldn't be permitted.
Don't even get me started on that. That's huge everywhere, and it's a part of a larger issue. In fact, we're going to transcend now. You've done it in a lot of your publications. Transcend Yonkers to a larger issue. Sometimes I think we in the news can get jaded because we see all these negative things, but I am of the growing opinion that our culture has evolved to where so long as you get yours, it's fine. It doesn't matter how you do it.
Right.
It doesn't matter. And can we sustain this? Is democracy working?
I think democracy is not working as much as we would hope for, but then it's probably exacerbated by the financial divide of our populace. Nothing else really matters. Ethnicity, gender, religion, color of one's skin. It's all based on money. Now, there might be other aspects of issues that come into play, but the basic difference between some people and other people is the difference in their earning capacity. And so if you're poor, you don't give money to people who are running for elected office because you don't have the money for that. And then there are other people who can afford to send in $100 or $1,000 and so on and so forth. When there's a re-election or an election process, some of the least known characters are asking for $250, $500, $1,000 just to attend. Where you get a couple of canopies and thank you and goodbye. This is the problem.
You know what bothers me a
They
little
run the show.
I've been working on a story. I've been working on a story about the amount of money that corporations made last year after the tax cut. And their profits went up literally by near $1 trillion collectively. And the problem is, for those of us who worked on Wall Street, what they've been doing with the money, rather than hiring more people and giving out more jobs, is they've been buying back their own stock to enhance the stock price and enhance the wealth of those that already own stock. And it's good for their investors, and it's good for the executives. But I don't know, some of it bothers me, and there are a lot of companies now that don't pay tax anymore and pay a little bit. Now we want to keep the economy healthy. I'm an old-fashioned capitalist that way, but there's just something wrong with what's going on regarding that and the income gap in this country.
Well, the real problem is not by the people, but the real problem is corporate greed, and they're the ones that got us here. For example, what was it, 12, 13, 14 years ago when we had that financial calamity, and every company under the sky was bailed out by the nation? That's the taxpayer that paid it, and we may go through another crisis like that in the next year or two or three. It's certainly looming. The economy shrank by over 2%. So the bottom line is it's a crisis, not necessarily because of the conduct of this country, of the United States, but rather a global crisis of technology usurping the old standards where people made money. So technology is driving the issue, and it's displacing a lot of people. But the corporations are milking it, and many of them don't even pay taxes. And they have means to just sideline money, and nobody knows where it is. But we've got lawyers who know how to move money around. And I remember when I once signed I needed to open up in a bank in Europe, because when I did this, it was when every country in Europe had a different currency. You had the French franc, the Swiss franc, there was a German Deutschmark, and a couple of other, the Dutch guilder. And so I needed to be able to switch money from dollars to other currency and back. And the first thing they wanted to know is if I was dealing in drugs. I said, are you out of your mind?
Well, yeah.
I'm in the travel business. Yeah. But they had to find that out, and I had to validate it and all kinds of stuff until they vetted it. An international bank. Yeah, but next thing you know, there are other banks that do exactly the same thing, and they have it on the books, but they don't follow it. They don't care.
Did you see the story the other day? Deutsche Bank. They've paid out like $70 billion in fines for 3 different problems. One, they were culpable in the mortgage crisis that brought down the economy in 2008. They were brought down, or rather they were fined heavily and criticized heavily for manipulating the LIBOR rate, which is an internationally accepted interest rate.
Right.
And then they got caught laundering money. People should go to jail, not just fined because they get fined other people's money. They should go to jail. It is phenomenal that this happens.
But most people don't even know about LIBOR. They don't know about Deutsche Bank. Maybe some people do.
No, I understand that, but it's a head scratcher.
Again, they're permitted. They're permitted because we know them, we like them, and they also invest in America, and sometimes with legal money, and sometimes it's not. It's amazing.
And there are a lot of people who believe, and I've heard this, but I don't know it for a fact because we've not seen the president's tax returns yet, but that Deutsche Bank, legally or not, laundered or not, may have been involved in getting money for the president for his businesses. Deutsche Bank's not to be trusted. Certainly, I know they changed their management. Wells Fargo clearly, until this change, couldn't be trusted. I mean, I thought after 2008 that we would hold these banks more accountable, but it doesn't seem to be happening.
No. It's a policy of who do you know and who do you want to keep close, and also how much money you're going to make off of protecting those that are insiders. And the Wall Street Journal doesn't write about it as much as they should, and they don't expose these companies. You would think that they would know, and it's getting to the point where even the Wall Street Journal, I feel like I'm reading a press release.
Oh,
and they don't really do, and it's one-sided.
That's really good. Hezi Harris is our guest. He's the managing editor and publisher of the Yonkers Tribune. One of the great features of your paper is the hesitorial. What's your hesitorial about this week? What are you writing about?
Don't have anything in particular because I've got a lot of items in the hopper, but they're not formalized yet, not completely. So that's a real big problem, and I can't discuss things until I know
until you check your facts.
Tight.
Do you enjoy writing the editorial, or do you have angst when you write it? Are you writing it because of angst? How sober are you in writing?
I don't write it.
Go ahead.
I'm very sober. I'm not angry at anybody. I guess what I cling to is a concept of ethical standards. I believe that one should tell the truth, validate the facts, make sure that they are valid, also protect the sources, because quite often there's a lot of retribution in different communities. If they find out that somebody did this, that, or the other, or said something to me, of all people, then they're not trustworthy. So, this is one of the problems, but I don't shy away from telling it the way it is. And you know what? In all my dealings for 20 years, you know what? Even those people that sued me lost in court. And those people who just admonished me also were wanting, because they never actually challenged anything I wrote for years and years and years. So, in fact, I'm really involved now in 3 lawsuits right now, which may come up before the courts very soon. And the point is, they just want to put me out of business. But I ain't going anywhere.
No, I know you're not going anywhere. But Hezi, and this you may not want to discuss this, and I'd understand it. But how can you afford to be sued like this? I mean, it's going to be expensive for you.
It is, but what do you do? If you make a commitment to be in the newspaper business, you do the work.
Yeah, integrity
if
comes.
If you want me to send out press releases, I could do that too.
You could.
But that's not the sort of thing that makes sense to me. I leave that to the public relations people. That's their job.
The dark side.
But that doesn't consume me. I'm consumed with things that matter to us at the end of the day. That's why, the Amazon deal, when they were admonished, hey, the bottom line is, if they don't pay their taxes, then you should talk to the government about that. Guess what? Their government in New York State, make sure they pay their taxes and get a return. But hey, they don't want to do that. So they want to demonize somebody who is the wealthiest man in the world at the moment. What has this money got to do with anything? He doesn't pay his taxes.
It's quite.
I mean, he pays his taxes, but I'm sure the corporation doesn't. That's the difference.
It is a difference. You still enjoying it?
I love it. Are you kidding?
You do, don't you? Love it.
I love it because it keeps me up. The nice thing about Yonkers, it won't let you die. It won't let you do it because they keep you engaged.
Now, tell us about
and they're not the only one, actually, if you must know. There are other places too.
Oh, Mount Vernon's the gift that keeps on giving. I got to share this with you. Now, right out of the box, Sean Patterson Howard comes in. Then the same controller that helped drive Richie Thomas out of Dodge won't pay some of her bills. Now she won't pay the overtime, although she may well be right because people are concerned about whether the overtime is bona fide. Now someone fired the deputy clerk there, but the city council didn't realize that they had to vote to do that. Can you take a whole administration of a city and send them to school? I mean, it's like they don't know what in God's name they're doing over there.
Even if they went to school, they wouldn't learn anything because they think they know it all, but they don't know the law. And you know what the problem is? Quite often there are many people who go for elected office thinking they know. They don't know squat. But they think that because they look good or they're right, whatever persona for a particular community, that's going to work. It doesn't. And the point is, like if you look at today's political world, we have a lot of newcomers, young people who just want to throw the bums out as if they're all bums. But you know what? It doesn't quite work that way.
But you know what?
They're not all bums.
Yeah, right. There's that old line, one form of tyranny is replaced by another. You know, you can't just go in and one of the biggest problems we have, and even among many people of goodwill, is they think that because something is right, at least in their minds, and even when it is right in God's eyes, you still have to go through the process. This is a system of checks and balances. You're doing the right thing. You can't, it's the right thing, do it anyway. No, you can't. And so...
You know what?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to stop.
No, I was going to say the people, for example, that want to take down no borders at all. That would be insane. You can't not have any borders. As much as we've screwed up immigration in this country and it needs to be satisfied, that's not the solution either. But that's what the new young people coming in don't understand. You know, it reminds me of when I was 9 years old and I said to my mother, Mom, how come they have to raise money to fight cancer? Do they need to put it in a pot and stir it up? And she said, son, scientists need to make a living too. You know, where are they going to get the money from?
Right.
And I see a lot of callowness in the far left right now in that regard. What say you?
Well, one thing I noticed, like, for example, we were talking about the comptroller in Mount Vernon.
Yeah.
You know, there was legitimacy in what she did when the Thomas administration was in charge, because she wanted to look at bills and she wanted them to be validated.
Well, let me just. I'm sorry to step on your words. No, but what I wanted to say was, in many cases, yes, but there were other things, like, for example, refusing a court order that she didn't do, and that's the problem that I have in Mount Vernon. Okay, don't pay bills that aren't. We're going to back you up, but then when the court order says,
but you know what the answer is?
What?
But you know what the answer is with regard to Deborah Reynolds? She may have been right on certain issues, and she was. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, she's inept. She doesn't have a clue. She doesn't have a clue. And guess what, though? She'll be there for another 2 years, and we'll see where it goes. So you could be nice. You could be respectful. You could do a lot of things. She doesn't validate very much of what she did, because she was quiet for a long time, because she doesn't have a capacity to express what she was doing and why she did it. And that's the problem. You can't just have people say no or yes, and it's not acceptable.
Right.
If you can't validate your perspective, then you got nothing.
Now,
the problem is that most people don't know that you got nothing, and they vote for you again because they know your name.
Because when Sean Patterson Howard was in here, and I could tell with the best of intentions, and she gave me an answer that I took not anger umbrage with, but intellectual umbrage with, which was, well, I'm not worried about the comptroller. I have a good relationship with her. And I said, Mayor, it doesn't matter if you have a good relationship with her. She's duty bound to do X, Y, and Z. She could hate you and the parents that brought you into this world, but she's got to do her job. It shouldn't be based on whether or not you have a good relationship with her. And I found that to be a weak spot in the new mayor, because if you're going to rely on relationships to have someone do what's duly bound, I mean, I expect a fireman to save my life if I hate his guts or he hates mine. And it's the same dynamic.
Well, look, I don't disagree with you. The only thing to recognize, though, is when Sean Patterson Howard was running for office, that was the campaign. I'm sure she's going to be learning differently now that she's in office.
Yeah, I think so, too.
It's different when you're at the helm. And here you've got a comptroller that I believe is best defined as inept, because she doesn't know how to abide by a court ruling. And the courts, like the bozos that they are,
God,
can't
don't
seem
even
to,
start
to,
me.
to just put it in place. So, you got to really wonder if the judges should really sit on the bench and wear those black robes when
I'm
they
so
can't
glad
do
you
squat.
said that, because what good is it? And this is the one thing that I had to side with Richard Thomas on, which is forgetting what the basis may be. He went to the court. He said, I need to see these numbers. The court agreed with him, ordered her to show them, and she said no, and the court didn't find her in contempt, didn't follow up. He requested, because we foil records, you and I had records sitting in front of me, a request for the controller to come in with listing the reasons why. The controller comes in. He spends a day and a half there, and then says, and I got the...
Yeah, but you know what? It's interesting. But it did boil down to money, didn't it? At the end of the day,
Probably.
Richard Thomas lied about everything that he did because he was using the IDA money to pay for things that he had no right to pay from that account. And he used that as a slush fund. And he got away with it because the judge didn't say to Deborah Reynolds, hey, what's your reason that you don't think that this is legitimate?
Well, absolutely.
And the bozo never told anybody what it was.
Well, that's
because
for
she didn't understand it.
Because there were monies paid. Now, Richard will say, and it's for others to decide, that he had to pay money out of those accounts because, it's like egg and chicken, because she wouldn't pay bills out of the regular accounts. But the whole point is...
Okay, just hold a minute. Just because you're hungry doesn't mean you're permitted to
No.
steal food from the
I understand
from the
that.
restaurant.
I understand.
So
I
why
understand
did he
that.
have the right to do what he did?
No, I understand that.
Remember Procari is another idiot that decided to steal money for the benefit of the former mayor.
Yeah, he's going to break rocks.
Says, I wasn't guilty?
I know.
Really? You stole the money.
But see, here's my point, and it's apropos to what you said earlier. If the judge was doing her job, a lot of this would have been unearthed. We'd have a real situation. But the judge says, yes, show him the books, and then goes back to sleep.
That's because she may not have had all the information, but then that fell on the back of Deborah Reynolds, who never explained herself because she's incapable of doing
but
that.
Hezzy, what am I missing
and
here?
Where you had a mayor who lied about.
But what am I missing here, though?
A judge had very little to do. She should have been able to fix her error, Lefkowitz, when she learned the way the facts were.
No, but whatever the error was,
I want to see this, that, and the other.
Right, but whatever the error was, what kind of credibility does it give a court to order something, have it be defied, and do nothing about it? And see, here I'm going to ratchet it up another level. I have found the governor, the controller, and I had Lyndon Williams on, and he told me that he's written letters to the DA, he's written letters to the governor, he's written letters to the attorney general, he's written letters, and for all of the things that the left wants that are crazy, the one thing that the left should have been raising their hands about, and I'm going to go there, is if it wasn't a black city, they might have done something about it, and that's how I felt about it. I rarely bring up the race card.
Well, you
think they would have let this happen in Mamaroneck?
Like that, but I don't think it had to do with the fact that it's predominantly a black city. I think that you had corruption, and the corruption was evident with Richard Thomas, and the corruption was evident with the controller, Deborah Reynolds, and there was, the same conduct that you will demean the controller, the New York State controller, or the governor, it overlays everything else. So, I mean, they say that there's a lot of corruption in Yonkers. Has anyone done anything about it? No. So, what's there to talk about?
Nothing. Would it be?
Because nobody's going to do anything.
Okay.
You know how many years we get admonished for going over our budget or not having enough money in our rainy day fund?
Well, at least there was a time.
On and on and on. And yet DiNapoli constantly, for years and years, validates our budget. Because when we went into receivership, that became the right of the controller.
At least there was a period in time when the state intervened in Yonkers. They should have intervened in some way, shape, or form in Mount Vernon, perhaps a long time ago, and didn't. And it just bothers me.
Well,
And again, I you know me, I rarely bring up the race car, but it bothered me. And in fact, I criticize a lot of people for bringing it up in other contexts. But why didn't they intervene? Is one day someone's going to write a book about it? Because finally, sooner or later, the sewer that became politics in that city it's got to be opened up sooner or later. We're never going to find out who dumped the dirt.
We come down hard on the African American community as if they're the ones that are the most debauched. However,
no, and I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is
communities that are Jewish that have failed. There are communities that are Italian that have failed.
But what I'm saying is
communities that are Chinese that have failed.
I feel that they failed the African American community.
Like
That's what I believe, that they failed that community. And I don't understand why.
But there's no mechanism for the state to bail out a city. There isn't any, other than to beseech them to do the right thing. And when you have people at the helm, like Richard Thomas, who lied and was controlled by special interests because he allowed himself to be controlled by special interests who gave him money for his
you're talking about Spezio, but try this on for
get.
size. Try this on for size. Richard could have died by his own hand when he begged the controller, and I got the documents, when he begged the controller to come in and said, audit the whole city. You know, there's do you remember the Great Honeymooner episode when Ralph Cramden goes to the boss and he says, I have this idea for buses that'll save you money. And then he says, I was the first to get laid off. I was the first to go. Well, Richard would have been perhaps the first to go. So they would have found out what he was doing that he shouldn't have been doing. They would have got the controller straight. They would have looked at the books, but they ran out of Dodge.
Who?
The controller.
Who? You mean Deborah Reynolds, or you mean DiNapoli?
No, DiNapoli. I'm sorry. In other words, you've got to say. In fact, to your point, if Richard was the only, if Mayor Thomas was the only bad actor there, and that assumes he was, if he was, that would have found out. Richard would have died by his own hand, just like Ralph Cramden did. So
but you know what the problem is. The problem is that when you have a government today, in the modern days, it probably wasn't like that 50 years ago, but right now you've got almost like a cult figure. When the public votes for a particular individual or individuals to take the helm in any government, they all are friends of the whoever the person is, and they're beholden to them. And even if they don't know them well, but they had great expertise, they become acolytes of these new people in power.
Well said.
And it's always the helm, the people at the helm, that will define the ethical standards of a city, of a business. And if we had the right people at the helm, we wouldn't have this corruption. But it demands leadership. That's why, for example, a lot of people can't stand Paul Feiner, but he's brilliant, and you know what? He's on the level.
Yeah, he really is on the level. Have you ever seen any
problem with him over 20 years?
And do you know what else he does, since we're talking about Paul Feiner? That he puts, as you know, I'm very critical of politicians I can't get a hold of because they try and hide behind it. Paul has a sign on his car. Like a pizza kiosk that says, "Hi, I'm the supervisor. Call me if you need me." God, I love that man.
Right.
If only he was. He's a terrible public speaker, though. I have to say something bad.
He's a terrible public speaker, and he writes poorly. But then I correct all of
that.
Yeah,
but he's the best
because there are issues sometimes. But that's not a problem.
No, I know. I'm just having fun, so people think I'm not just
conceptualize.
Right. I'm not just a sucker. Right.
Ideas.
I'm not just a sucker, but I think the world of that man.
No.
Yeah.
I know that's what it is. But there are other people like that. I adore. The first time I ever met the mayor from the village of Bronxville.
Oh, she's she's great.
Mary Marvin.
Yes, she's good.
I thought she walked on water, and you know what? I still do.
And guess how much she gets paid?
She gets paid, I think, $15,000.
No, you know what she gets paid? She takes $25,000. Yeah, but she just takes $1 a year.
Right.
I tell her, I want to be sure you pay taxes
like
on that.
Victoria Garrity from Ossining.
Yeah.
She's run 3 times, and so a 2-year terms each, but she won't continue. She already said that last year.
You know, I admired
after this 2020. She will depart.
Do you know I admired in the old days?
Brilliant people.
Do you remember Valerie Moore O'Keefe was another gift?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
God.
loved her.
And here you had a Republican conservative, because some people say, oh,
Yeah.
it's a conservative, I don't like him, or a liberal, I don't like him. You know, there's good in all, but you're right. There are people to look forward to. But I just wish the state would have helped out that city. I feel bad for the people of Mount Vernon, and I just wish they could have done more.
You could feel bad, but the state doesn't have a mechanism to fix it, or they're lacking, or they will recoil from trying to fix anything.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if that's the case, and for whatever reason, and people like DiNapoli or the governor can't do anything, well, guess what? We've got people in the Assembly and we got people in the Senate. Do they ever sit down and think about these issues? The answer is they don't, because if they did, they would have done something about it. They could pass legislation and get it done.
Hey,
But you know what? We refuse to recognize that these people who are getting a fortune of money and a lot of notoriety don't do their job. But they promise us the world and deliver, as they say in my world, buckus. They can give you a kick in the pants,
that word,
and that's all they do.
I like that word, buckus.
Sorry,
Well, listen,
it's a new word.
I've heard it before. Listen, before you go, my friend, I want to remind people before you go, Hezi Harris is the managing editor and the publisher of the Yonkers Tribune. He also has an important radio show. You could listen at 10 o'clock on Blog Talk Radio. What's your topic today? What are you talking about?
Well, we got a lot of people on the show talking about Mayor Garrity. So she's going to start off the first half hour. We're going to talk to her, and then we're going to speak to just to see what's going on in the village, and then we'll speak to a woman by the name of Gabrielle M. Etzel. She's the editor-in-chief of a publication called the Unvarnished Blog. She's a publisher and editor-in-chief, and then we're going to speak to the director of New York, New Jersey, HBCU. I don't know if you heard of them. They're the Historically Black Colleges and Universities Initiative. And so, you know what's so interesting about all this is, like, I like to mix up different perspectives from different places because I want to be challenged by different ideas and different concepts. Oh yeah, the woman from the Unvarnished Blog, we're going to talk about abortion because that's become politicized.
Oh,
so
don't you
rather
think?
than to be what it is. So yeah. So but that's the point, though. The point is, you know what? You know when you look at people, especially when you look at them from what do you call it? A sexual perspective. You've got males that run the gamut from being one way or the other on a spectrum. You got women who are the same way on a spectrum. And, politically, we're also on a spectrum. But you know what? I tend to believe that there's so little difference between us. So maybe it's 47-53, one way or the other, and to turn it around. And you know what? We really think alike, and we have basically same concepts. But what we're seeing in the politics of the world today is it's all about them, like you said. It's all about them making a buck, and the hell with us. And we're the fools who don't know who we should vote for. And they're working for themselves. You know what they say? In politics, the first thing to do is to get elected. Number two is to get reelected. And it goes on and on and on.
It really does.
And isn't it interesting that the public is never part of this equation?
No, heaven forbid.
Well,
listen, it's time to go, but I want to remind people, 10 o'clock, Blog Talk Radio, On the Level with Hezi Harris. Go and look at his website, please. The Yonkers Tribune.
Westchester On the Level.
Right.
So
and by the way, don't forget to always look for the Hesitorial. It's great reading. Hezi Harris, thank you very much. You have a great weekend.
My pleasure.
Take
care.
Enjoy.
All the best to you.
You
Thank
too.
You,
all righty, folks. That slams the lid on it. As we said, we'll be out by 9:30 today. We want you to enjoy the weekend. We'll be reporting Super Bowl stuff. And Jake is still here. Jake, great job today. Thank you very much. You will want to be here on Monday because Jake will either have egg on his face or he'll be triumphant. He's already had a winning year. He's our sports picker, our sports guy. I'm Bob Marrone. Let's take a last look at the weather. And the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. And it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. We're talking 35 degrees right now. And But it's going to be cloudy for the rest of the day, and we're going to hover around 40 degrees. Tonight, though, cloudy skies, slight chance of a brief passing rain or snow shower. Lows around 34. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy with a slight chance for a passing rain or snow shower. Then, throughout the day, mild, though, highs around 43. And on Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, it's also Groundhog Day. Partly sunny and breezy with highs around 44 degrees. And before we go, we just want to thank a few people. Certainly, we want to thank our sponsors today, Plug-in Virtual Reality, Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. And, of course, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and they will bring you Jake's results of the week. Coming up on Monday, and that's Dominic Fine Cigars, located, a licensed retailer rather, with a big selection including Arturo Fuente, Padrones, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located on Boston Post Road in Larchmont. They're open 7 days. We want to thank our callers. In fact, we had a visiting caller today. We included him in our sports roundup. Anthony, of course, Tom from Pelham, Vincent Russo, Janelle Albritton, Steve Callis. Jake, again, good job getting a sports segment together. Of course, our friend Steve Callis with him. Hezi Aris, and for everybody out there, you enjoy the Super Bowl. We'll see you next time.